All right, gentlemen. It's the world's recap show. We're promising each other we're not going to do a big one. I'm feeling under the weather. Everyone's a little under the weather. Rory's got the post world's blues. I'm feeling the same way. You return back to reality and you're like, oh my God, reality isn't as fun as his worlds when you're all over the place, the event high, the whole night. Um, let's rip through this. We already alluded. I did 13 freaking live podcasts. We recapped every flipping battle we possibly could, except for the last day, which obviously goes straight into the banquet. But we did tons and tons and tons of content. So there's no worries there. But let's ask some key questions and dive from a different perspective into this recap. We'll rip through some of these weight classes and ask a few key questions about it and investigate it, but we don't need to rehash what we've already done. Anyone listening, 13 episodes live in studio with the winners, the podiums, the whole nine, tons of content. And it's dropped now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the whole freaking nine. Initially, it was just up on White Lights Media YouTube. All right, no further ado. Let's pick this up in the 47 women's class. First off, Heather Connor was in the studio, and Heather flat out said, if the French chose different attempts, I think Turbo Tiff would have beat me. Heather is about as honest as you could. It's almost refreshing how blatantly she's. I'm just going to tell you right now. If they had picked that differently, that last deadlift was a max lift. If she had gotten a squat or a bench in there, a third squat, third bench or whatever, I would have been in serious trouble. Um, but as it were, Heather Connor did win, and the French chose what they chose for the attempt selection. Turbo Tiff, as Rory had said previously, missed all of her thirds. She's got a bad habit of missing some lifts. She posted up right afterwards. You win or you learn, and she always got away with it. Four-time world champ. Maybe this is where they're going to start asking some tough questions. Be like, hey, you know what? Did we leave some kilos on the table due to this? Let me ask you, gentlemen, have handled at the world championship level. Who wants to take Rory? How about you tell me because you were saying beforehand?
Yeah, so before I dive into that, I just want to say that Vicky did incredible last year. She got sort of, I think we said, sacrificed on the altar of bench depth, and this year she had a real revenge meet. So shout out to Vicky for having a fantastic day. Yeah, and so top two there, Heather, Tiff. I think Tiff was actually the stronger woman on the day. She just went 6 for 9. They made some frankly terrible attempt selections. Heather did amazing. She went 8 for 9. The only thing she missed was a third bench press where she'd only gone up 2.5 kilograms, which is the minimum increment. So, like, she got every single kilogram out of her bench. I'm pretty sure she got every single kilogram out of her deadlift as well. Like, if she'd had to pull 213.5, I don't think she would have had it. Which probably means that if the French team had taken one additional kilogram on Tiffany's bench, or found 1 kilogram anywhere else the entire day, made one third attempt across any one of those three lifts, Tiff probably would have walked away as a world champion instead. And they didn't. And so this is one of those cases where I think coaching won/lost the day, where Heather put together a string of really good attempts. Obviously, she was very strong as well, and like that goes without saying. But then she strung together a bunch of really good attempts and walked away with a 435 total, which is was that 1 kilogram on the world record? I think that was 1 kilogram on the world record. And Tiff just didn't. Again, it's pretty much exactly what I thought was going to happen, right? Like, Tiff went 2 for 3 on squats, took a third squat that was just inappropriate and missed it. Broke the world record bench on her second, took a third bench that was inappropriate and missed it. And then went 2 for 3 on deadlifts as well, and took a third deadlift that was just inappropriate and missed it. It's painful,
I would
man.
what I would say is, like, I wasn't overly fussed about the third squat and dead, but that third bench, her PR going in was 101.5. Her second attempt was already a record. From 101.5 to 105 is a massive PR jump for a 47 kilo lifter in bench press. To say that's a bold attempt for a 47 kilo lifter in the bench press event to be like, I'm going to PR that big and gamble that big. I'm not even talking that they didn't take a chip. Who cares? It wasn't going to happen. As soon as I seen 105 go in, and I seen, okay, they're not taking a chip. Didn't even matter. Let's be honest. Like you could take any increment from, it was all a world record, by the way, obviously, right? So she could have done any incremental jump up there from 103, 103 and a half. It was all hers. All 0.5 incremental jumps that she wanted. How they landed on the idea of 105, I have no idea. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this is, you just missed a third squat. I wasn't overly fussed on the third squat. I thought it was reasonable myself. But this one, I'm like, you might have thrown this away. You might have thrown this away. A kilo and a half, you can never balk at. In a battle this tight, a kilo and a half, you can never balk at that. And to have loaded 105 is just like, you it's so much more than you've ever done on the platform. And they have to, I don't know if they're taking data points from what happened in training. It never translates though. What was the body weight when she did 455 in the gym, and what's the body weight on the day of? They have to start like Matt and you guys always say, looking at what you've done on the platform and stop overestimating based off a gym because it's not translating. And in battles when they're this close, you can't go 6 for 9 and the other person goes 8 for 9. You're not going to make it. This is what's going to happen. The attempts, you miss out on a kilo and a half, it'll murder you. In Heather, we're going to talk about this in a second. I don't want this to be the main storyline. That one call. Although Heather herself brought that up when we were talking, but my God, Heather improving this late stage in her career. She's been around forever. And for her to be improving this late stage and improving by leaps and bounds at the international level, IPF worlds with the travel and everything, and the standard of officiating, and for her to be hitting PR lifts like this and in a PR total and upsetting, the most dominant 47 kilo force we've ever seen, crazy, absolutely crazy. What a story it is for Heather. Now Heather's got to be in the conversation for a 47 kilo GOAT by having done this. Being the champ previously, storing back in unseating of all people, Turbo Tiff. Nobody's ever beat Turbo Tiff at IPF. No one's ever beat Turbo Tiff, period. She hasn't lost a local meet, let alone at Worlds. And Heather Connor just pulled that off. Matt, what are your thoughts here?
I think we've been saying this for a long time, right? We said that eventually we thought that this was going to catch up to Tiff. You cannot routinely go out and make 6.5 lifts and expect to win against formidable opponents like the likes of Heather Connor and gosh, I can't even, now her name escapes
Jessica
me.
Espinal.
Yes, thank you. Jess Espinal, and now you've got rising stars like Vicky Kay, who aren't that far away. But it finally came back to bite her in the ass. And just like Rory said, the attempt selection was just mind-blowing. The number on the third squat wasn't a bad number. I mean, that was 0.5 over the world record, but perhaps the second one was too heavy. Maybe they should have taken 160 on the second attempt to leave a little bit of gas in the tank, but I know they favor this tight grouping and these really itty bitty jumps. And then, to your point, and not trying to beat a dead horse, but you could have taken any number on that third attempt and you took 105, a whole number that's an error, And so, I mean, 103 should have been the number, that would have given you 0.5, but taking 102, then you end up with a total of 435.5. You're under a 5 kilo, a whole number increment there. And also what we talked about on the previous show, Rory and I both mentioned that in Tiff's last 3 meets, and now it's 4, she has taken this different path to end at a 172.5 kilo deadlift. And they've modified the attempt structure and the attempt selection, and each and every time now, this is 4 times in a row, it has yielded the same result, which means she has missed 172.5. So you to your point, Ryan, you need to do some soul searching and some gut checking and just ask yourself, what are we doing wrong? And are we, chasing data points that happen in training? But look, all praise and credit is due to Heather. I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid, but now I am. I said that she hadn't come out of the squats clean internationally since 2016, and look what she did. She went 3 for 3 in the squat and hit a PB to the tune of 147.5. So kudos to her. She came out of there, like you said, she only missed 2.5 on the bench. That's nothing. And then she pulled a PB deadlift. And to your point, Ryan, if she'd had to pull a kilo more, I don't think she would have had it. That was a limit lift on the line. I mean, absolute all she had with 212.5, but she was able to execute on the day and win by half a kilo. So credit to her. And again, like Rory said, credit to Vicky. I was just ecstatic to see her go 9 for 9 to put together a 412.5 kilo performance. Absolutely exquisite, flawless, her signature performance after what she had to deal with last year. So all credit to her for showing up, for being humble about it last year and just taking one on the chin, so to speak, and coming back and placing third. So I think for me, that was the story, of the 47s, and don't have too much to add beyond that.
And Elisa also of Italy. I mean, man, is Italy not done phenomenal at the
Yeah.
Worlds on the women's side? Holy smokes, just finishing off podium at 400 kilos. Eric, is there an argument to be made that Heather is the GOAT 47 now? Or still is it
Yeah.
Turbo Tiff? Yeah.
No, I think there's definitely an argument, and I think the reason being is that of all time thing. She's got a career spanning. I don't think that this is settled by any means. Like Tiffany Chaponis and Jessica Espinal are both very young, so I think Heather's going to have domestic battles as well as international battles. If those domestic battles go well, that will really solidify her. But this is an amazing comeback, and I do want to give her a shout out. She messaged me after our preview show. And she was like, "Hey, you were speculating as to potentially why I haven't, been at the peak of my game or made improvements, but the real reason, is that I've been finally now made it over a significant hump with some health complications that were preventing me from training the way I wanted to." And, I think she showed that is the case. She was in a very high pressure situation where she had to put it all on the line, and she performed very well. So huge shout out to her. And if that was the barrier holding her back, I think we're going to see some good things. Because it's not just being able to do it on the platform, but if she can have more and more effective training now, even in this late stage of her career, we might be seeing a second resurgence in her 30s, which is awesome to see. We love to see it. Other people have done it. So definitely an argument to be made, but I would say right now we're in kind of horns locked, right? This is kind of for the 47s. It's almost as if Jordan and LeBron were in the same era. We don't have to debate. We're going to get to see them battle, and they're both at their peaks, right? So it's not like we're trying to compare two distant peaks. By the way, the answer is Jordan, but the what we're seeing now.
Amen.
Agreed.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we're seeing now is actually really exciting. And then the final thing I'll say is, I said, oh, this might be the first year we see a full podium of 400 kilos and up. Not only we get that, we got the cherry on top with fourth place at 400 kilos on top. So now this is great. It was a really cool class to watch, but I will echo the sentiments of everyone else. It was painful to watch the attempt selections.
Yeah, it was you're right. This is a phenomenal era. For a second there, it looked like Turbo Tiff just keeps winning 4 in a row is crazy. But now entering into like Espinal, first Espinal took the world record. Now Heather took the world title. And although stressful for Turbo Tiff, this is going to be a good sports era for her. She rallies back and wins, and they go back and forth. Oh, you sprinkle in some Jessica Espinal wins as well. It's going to be a lot more memorable, and it's a lot more entertaining and people are going to enjoy it. 52 kilo class. Eric, let's start with you, sir. Evie Corrigan got pressed like we've never seen her pressed. Evie Corrigan straight up said, "I first off, she was uncomfortable. She got put in tough situations, which is all good. This is a good thing. You have to answer these questions. This is what you want to see in sports." She also said she's not sure if her progress is plateaued or not. She was very open on the podcast, wondering aloud, has her progress slowed? And was contemplating now moving up to 57 if it had. Now, Megan Lee Smith was obviously saying, well, I hope she doesn't leave because my progress is definitely not slowed. And oh my gosh, is Megan Lee Smith progressing at an alarming rate. And she could see the finish line. And for her, the finish line is a head-to-head win over Evie Corrigan. Now, Evie sounded like I'm leaving before this happens. Megan, obviously, you want a clean passing of the baton from one to the other. You don't put the baton on the ground and I pick it up. I want to beat you in battle. That's how most sports you want to see the lineage pass as a sports fan. But I don't blame Evie if she's like, look, if the going isn't going the way I wanted to, I'm moving on if I don't progress. What were your thoughts watching this, Rory? Do you think Evie is getting close to that plateau, the ceiling at the 52, and should maybe investigate the 57s?
Sorry, you said my name at the end there, but you said Eric's at the
Oh,
beginning.
sorry,
So I think
Eric.
that was directed
Sorry,
at Eric.
Eric. I meant Eric. I'm looking at Eric. You can't tell. Sorry, Eric.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. I love Evie's transparency. She came on Iron Culture before she cut down to 52, and we talked about her, I'll say mental struggles. I don't mean to make it sound like it was, anything more than it was of winning a junior world title when she did. And since then, I've seen her mature tremendously as she's gone up. But she came into the 52s, winning the inaugural Sheffield as just this completely dominant force, and no one could touch her. And we've seen Megan Lee Smith just steadily improve and improve and improve. And I almost think Evie needs to give herself a little more credit. I was not surprised by her performance, being able to do it. I think, when you're an athlete, especially one like Evie, who she's not a bred, tried and true historical athlete. She just found out, oh shit, I'm incredibly strong and I have great genetics for powerlifting from just kind of coming into it. I think we titled the Iron Culture episode "Accidentally Winning a World Championships." You know, so she was very late in the game coming into powerlifting and has an incredible talent for it. And then, her and Jason and Kedrick did an amazing thing and kind of began this era of, oh shoot, we need to really figure out what the best weight class is for me. And we've seen Chell, Tim Monagatti, and many others follow in those footsteps, and even more, which we'll talk about in other weight classes. So being able to do that, get on at the very first Sheffield, and even though you're not in head-to-head battle with other 52s, perform the way she did, and just put the entire world on notice. I knew I think she's more of a clutch player than she realizes. So I wasn't surprised when she went out there, had to pull her last deadlift, and did it to win by 2.5. But I'm glad that it surprised her, because what that means from an athlete psychology perspective is that she is solidifying her own belief in that she is her. She is the person who shows up when needs to do. She gets done what has to be done. And I'm actually really excited for the future. I don't know if Evie's capped out. She's certainly seen a slowing of progress. And we're kind of looking at her being able to put together the best of the SBD to maybe hit like a best on paper 490 total, rather than talking about, oh man, her training's really looking up. She's going to be even better and even better and even better. But I think she is vulnerable in the 52s. I think that there's no question there. And I don't think Megan Lee Smith is done improving. So, if they were both to do the 52s next year, I think it would be very contentious. I'll say that much. And I am curious to see if Evie goes back up to the 57s, will she have a nice, rebounding in performance, and will she be able to get into the 500s and be competitive at that level? I would suspect so. So I would say, Evie's got the flexibility to go either way, and I don't think anyone should begrudge her not taking the battle with Megan Lee Smith. As an athlete, you're beholden to getting the best competitive outcomes for yourself, and we're moving into a phase of powerlifting now where it's becoming, at least for the top level athletes, more and more professionalized. And can we really expect someone to go, yeah, I'm going to turn down potential career opportunities, if you want to call it that, by getting this battle? And it's not like she can move to the 57s and have an easy go. I mean, come on. Like, the 57s is an incredibly competitive weight class. There's no more guarantee that she would be able to come out on top over Megan Lee Smith than that she would be able to even podium in the 57s at this stage. So there's no easy path for her, and I think she should do whatever is best for her longevity in the sport. And it is psychologically, for a powerlifter, if you're not improving, regardless of your body weight, that's a tough thing. So I don't think her desire to improve is necessarily running away from Megan. At least I wouldn't see it that way. I think many powerlifters, and we've talked about this before, the way you psychologically motivate yourself differs. But I know all powerlifters, it's not just about the head-to-head. They want to improve. And if that's what she needs to do to improve, then I don't think anyone should begrudge her. And she may need to go to the 57s to do that.
And the 52 kilo drop down was never supposed to be forever. She's actually been there a lot longer than people suspected. And I think if she moves up with everything she's gathered knowledge base wise for training as a 57, she'll be way stronger than she used to. I mean, she's stronger as a 52 than she was as a 57. Um, Decker's phenomenal showing, breaking back to back in the second and third round squat world records. Noemi Alibert and finishing with 453. Noemi Alibert in fourth, Canada, and Catherine Gagne in fifth. And there was obviously Farid Farhana breaking the world record deadlift with like looks like so many kilos to flip and spare. It's insane. But she's just going to chip it, and why wouldn't she? But yeah, the 52s are leveling up. I just checked. Alexandra from Serbia, 420. 420 gets you 11th place now, huh? 11th place, 420. That's insane. What are we talking about here? The 52s are just insanely stacked. I can't believe the progress the 52s have made. And call it the Evie Corrigan effect, because once she dropped out, Megan Lee actually said that. She dropped down and all of a sudden everyone's chasing her, and look what's happened. Uh, Matt, did you want to say something before we move into the 57s?
The only thing that I was going to add is that on paper, when you look at this, the score, it was quite close. And indeed, it shows that they both missed their third squat. They took identical benches. But I'll just say this, Evie had a lot left in the tank on that third pull. I just watched it again. She pulled 205. She had another 7.5 easily if she needed it. So that is no disrespect to Megan. She pushed her to the brink. She did exactly what she needed to do. Megan got the most kilos that she possibly could and pushed Evie to make her third pull. And that's what you want to do as a competitor. But I'll just say that in my opinion, Evie had plenty left in the tank on that final pull, even after having missed that third squat. So I think there's more meat on the bone. Will we ever see Evie get to that, 500 milestone number? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if she's, to Eric's point, going to hang around in the class long enough. Maybe she wants the challenge of moving up or moving back to where she came from, as it were. But anyway, there's more there. I do believe she can total 490 plus. I mean, with another 7.5 on the deadlift, she's already there. And, we get back to the squat that she missed and she's above 490. So anyway, but a phenomenal competition. Again, like you said, Plume Decker's 9 for 9, put 10 kilos on her total. My goodness. And the world record, there was more there too. That 178 looked fantastic. So yeah, the 52s have leveled up. They always have a special place in my heart, because that's where my wife competed for the bulk of her career. So it's astounding what they're all doing.
Want to move on, Rory, or did you want to throw something else in there as well?
Now let's move
All
on.
right, let's talk about the 57s. Oh my gosh. Sarah Naldi. There was a lot of hype on Sarah Naldi ever since she dropped down. As soon as she did that at Italian Nationals, what she did at Girl Power, and now not only did she take the world championship, but the world record with 520, beating no less Jad Jacob, Joy Namani, Natalie Richards, Bobby Butters. I understand Natalie wasn't 100%, but just an absolute phenomenal showing. And while we're at it, oh my, Jad Jacob. Rory, were you in the back when this was going on?
No, I was watching from the side when this happened.
Matt, were you in the back?
I was there. We were the next lifter. Bobby was the next lifter when Jad came off after that third squat and actually collapsed. And so
but she collapsed in the warm-up room while warming up for squats.
That I actually missed, but I was standing right there when her body just kind of literally went lifeless for a moment after that third squat.
And she was out. She was as out as out gets. Here's what's crazy.
Yeah.
She was warming up in the warm-up room for squats for the very first event, passed out, woke up, completely unconscious, woke up, you're at IPF Worlds. Get it together, hop out there, literally in your third squat, unconscious on the platform, and she was out for a few seconds there. Yeah. Woke up on the platform, live on the stream. Everyone's like, you're again, you're at IPF Worlds. You got to gather yourself. And not only did she gather herself, she won a silver medal and pulled for the win. Complete all-out Hail Mary throw pull for the win. Talk about insane heart. If you would have asked me, how does her day end? After seeing her pass out and hearing she passed out, that was the second time. I'm like, there's no way. She's off podium. It's going to be a tough day. This is going to be hard to watch. I can't believe Jad Jacob ended up where she ended up as a silver medalist and the showing she had and never passed out again. It's crazy the amount of resolve she has. Absolutely insane how tough she is mentally to withstand that. I can't freaking believe it. And when you pass out and you come back to, you literally are like, where the hell am I? What are we doing? Where am I? Point me in the right direction. It's crazy that she did what she did. But freaking Sarah Naldi, Rory, tell me about the 57s. What was your impression, sir?
I was really really impressed by Sarah Naldi. Like, is this the strongest that we've ever seen the 57s in the past? Like I would say probably not. There was a little bit of a spread there, but it was really enjoyable to watch. So like obviously I really enjoyed watching Jade come back after a bit of an abysmal performance at Sheffield. Put like another 50 kilos on her total since then. Obviously passed out on her third squat, which by the way she got the squat and then she passed out. And also, I want to say her coach had her in recovery position in like about half a second flat, which I was also super impressed by. Like by the time I realized what was happening, he had already acted, and so like that was quite cool to see. Um, but then, but oh my goodness, Sarah Naldi, 8 for 9, ridiculous squat, 197 squat at 57. Oh my goodness, I wasn't coaching anyone in the session. I was just watching from the audience. And oh my goodness, I enjoyed watching that. That was so good. Yeah. So like I said, I don't think this is the best 57 kilo class we've ever seen. Like there wasn't the same depth that we might have seen in other years. Bit of a spread between sort of first and second. Though of course Shad did take a real bit of a Hail Mary, but like it was an honest crack at pulling for that as well. But I
Enjoy.
really enjoyed watching this, and I would love to see what Sarah's going to be able to do in this class in the future.
And Joy as well. Joy's wasn't so much a
Joy
Hail
as
Mary.
well.
She
Yep.
almost had that. She was a real threat with that. That was a legitimate attempt by Joy. Um, Jada wasn't on the day and she was having a rough day. I agree with you, Rory. The ladies, like obviously Natalie was severely injured and her total's down. Jad, this isn't the best total we saw from Jad either. However, Sarah can raise her hand and say, well, I still have the biggest total we've ever seen in 57. So regardless, my total is bigger than their best day they've ever had. So if you tell me they didn't have their best day, that's fine. I could tell you, even on their best day, my day was better. So there is that caveat, which I'm glad she has. One thing I would like Team Italy to take chips when they're breaking world records in the squat.
Yes.
It ended up being a spread. It might not have been a spread. It might have been, you might be winning by zero point 0.5. So in the future, Team Italy, you have to take chips if it's a world record, especially in the 57 kilo class when it's this tight. You didn't pay for it, but you might have paid for it in the end. But it is what it is there. Yeah, Joy Namani, phenomenal showing. Holy smokes, right back in the hunt of things, and really gave the scare of a lifetime to Team Italy. Hats off to Bobby Butters. Natalie Richards showing a lot of poise and rallying as best she could. Matt, what were your impressions? I know you were in the battle here.
Yeah, I think Rory pretty much nailed it. I mean, congrats to Sarah. She just showed up and showed out. Again, attempt selection was a little bit weird there. I was surprised to see the 190 go up on the board for the second attempt. 188 was the previous record. I had anticipated a chip, but once she got that, I knew, at least for Bobby, because I was Bobby's coach on the day, I knew that, the world record was pretty much out of reach for us. So we were just going to continue to pace. And then of course, Sarah added to that on her third attempt and only missed her last deadlift, which of course opened the door for Joy, like you said. And I think the whole message that we were just preaching to Joy, and of course she knew this all along, was just pace, 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 pounce. Right at the end, we're going to have an opportunity if we play our cards right. If we're 8 for 8, you're going to be in the mix, and in all likelihood, we're going to have an opportunity here to pull for positioning. And I think right after Joy's second deadlift, I was there, but I wasn't coaching her on the day. I was just kind of offering support. I immediately thought, after I saw her second one, my knee-jerk reaction, which oftentimes I find for myself when calling attempts, is the right one. The longer that I waffle back and forth and think it over, the more I am, I'll convince myself out of it. I immediately thought 237.5 is what she has. And we looked up at the board and we realized, 240.5 is the number. There's literally no other number to load. We're not going to fall off podium. Let's take a swing at this sucker. And of course, she took a massive swing and almost got the damn thing. And so just an incredible performance by Joy. Of course, very proud of Bobby Butters, who tied her PB total, only missing her third bench. Just an extraordinary performance from Bobby in terms of execution, given all of the externals that she's got in her life going on right now, pursuing her PhD, et cetera, has a lot on her plate. So for her to come in and toe 40.92.5 was great. And like you said, Ryan, about Jade, just the heart of a lion. That was a scary moment there when she collapsed after her third squat. She was literally just lifeless. She was out before she hit the platform. And then to Rory's point, her coach Cyril was on top of her. I mean, faster than you can imagine, had her turned over, knee sleeves down and off, belt unlocked. And so credit to him for obviously offering support there in the moment. And just an incredible performance by Jade, considering the circumstances that she passed out twice. I only thought it was once. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see, really five people kind of, I know Natalie was less their best and kind of dinged and injured. And so we weren't seeing the true Natalie Richards that we've come to expect, but still just a phenomenal battle here amongst, 4 or 5 lifters in play, and it kind of coming down to the end to kind of sort out the podium, obviously with Sarah being in the pole position, but just an exciting championships from my point of view.
Anything else to add, Eric? I'm going to throw a question to you about the 63s. Do you want something to add to the 57s though?
Very brief. Bobby Butters was so surprised when she hit that last deadlift and so happy. She nearly got red lighted on it for doing up down. And the look on her face was exactly what I love about Bobby and her passion for the sport. And then the last thing I'll say is now out of that top 5, there are 4 actively competing world champions in this class. It's becoming the 83s of the women's. And I think it's really, really cool to see. And when they're all healthy, this is one of those scenarios where you can roll a 5-sided die, which does not exist, and see who might win. So yeah, that's all.
And I will add one thing, Ryan, because I know we're going to come to the end of it. Kind of when we tie a ribbon around the women, I just want to mention one thing about Joy's third deadlift. So we're going to put a pin in that, and we'll come back to it at the end when we're done with the 84 pluses.
Okay. And yeah, in terms of the 57s, Sarah has talked about in the future she might be dropping down to 52. So let's see what the heck happens. Oh my goodness, that could be a shakeup. Megan, Evie, Serenaldi, holy flipping smokes. Now we're going to be talking about entering into the 500s. Ready or not, here she comes. Let's talk about the 63s. In Eric, Elba, last year Joey Flex said, I want to give her exposure in the open. I want her to taste this, feel it. She was the nerves, the battles she had talked about on the podcast previously. She didn't historically as a junior didn't feel comfortable in battles, didn't feel comfortable in those elements. And she was still a junior, and Joey said, I think you need to experience this just to get, so when you come back, it's more familiar. And each and every time it's more familiar. My God, talk about a difference from last year to this year. And it was just 2 months ago. Megan Scanlon posted up the biggest 63 kilo total we've ever seen. It was the strongest 63 that ever lived. And just 2 months later, look where we're at. How do we make sense of this? Is Megan now where she's going to be, and the young wave is now taking over?
I said this on the preview. I said, listen, I'm not going to, I think both Matt and I said we're not going to bet against Megan Scanlon. But I, of course, hedge my bets that I always have an opportunity to be right. The persistent narcissism is a theme in my life. And I said, listen, one of these days, maybe soon, but I don't think it will be this world championship, Alba's going to come into her own. She's going to put together the performance that we all know she's capable of, and she's not going to be that touchable. I think what we're seeing now, hopefully, is the skill of powerlifting and the confidence converging. And now, as she continues to get stronger and improve, because she is so young, she's going to continue to keep peaking. So it happened just a little earlier than I predicted. She put together a 9 for 9 days. She set a new world record, and she's arrived. So I think this could be a new era. I definitely am not saying that and saying like, listen, we can't have Megan Scanlon having a great day or Chiara Bernardi continuing to improve as well. She's not obviously standing on top of the pile alone. But I would say she solidified the me being willing to bet on her now. Because remember, I bet a little too early. If you recall what happened for Sheffield, I said, you know what, Alba's the youngest one. She's going to come out. She's going to be the top of this pack, and I was incorrect. And this time I pulled back, and then she did it again, and actually said, no, this time I'm ready. So now I'm pretty confident that I think we're going to be seeing her star continue to rise. So yeah, man, she's going to be a phenom. I mean, she already is, right?
Rory, you were high on Chiara Bernardi, as it were. You had reason to be. Chiara also bested Megan Scanlon, which is huge. Chiara had a massive total herself and came down to the very last pull for her. She openly said after the second attempt, she was pretty much capped out. But what are you going to do? Of course, you're going to pull for the win. You're at the World Championship. But what do you think in leading the charge, obviously, with Italy? Italy had such a phenomenal showing on the women's side. What are your thoughts on Chiara Bernardi, and can she emerge like Alba did?
Yeah, obviously, I'm still very bullish on Chiara Bernardi, right? Like she came out, she put man, actually, I think in the preview show, I said she's not going to put 20 kilos on her total. That would be ridiculous. Ha ha ha. She actually put 20 kilos on her total. Five 560 total. The previous best was 540. So like that's respectable, I think. 7.5 kilos on her bench. Oh my goodness, she's finally learned how to bench. I think what actually held her back on this day though was really poor coaching. Again, it's going to be a little bit of a theme. I sort of kept some running notes on my phone throughout the championships of just like things that I was noticing and things that I wanted to reflect on later. And there's a couple of things in here that sort of allude to that. I think it might have been Matt's point earlier. One of the notes just says, take the damn chip. But also like defense wins championships. And that's probably not a phrase that we apply to powerlifting very often. But, if she'd made a second squat, she probably would have won this. I thought her bench went amazing. The third deadlift attempt was admirable. I thought she was pretty much tamped out after her second, but she took a really good crack at that third as well. And that's like, that is admirable coming out for another 5 kilos after you know that you probably haven't got it. But giving it a solid attempt anyway is really cool. But just probably open squat a little bit too heavy, took a bit too much of an aggressive jump and just like couldn't secure it. Whereas if she'd taken a 205 or a 207, for example, I mean, I think she would have had a 205. She may have had a 207. And that may have been the difference between, second and first place in this instance. I think Alba probably had a little bit more on her deadlift, but, did she have 7.5 more? Perhaps not. So I think Chiara still has, room to grow into this. I mean, she's 26. She's got plenty of years until she hits like any sort of like shelf life for a powerlifter. I just want to see the coaching get a little bit better. I want to see the attempt selection get a little bit better. It's clear that she's got the strength. It's clear that she's making progress. Stop going 6 for 9.
Matt, what do you think?
I agree with Rory's statements in terms of the coaching, and I want to give just an observation here and perhaps a philosophical difference in the way that I would call attempts. So I just want to draw our attention to the deadlift. So after the first round of deadlifts, Alba was ahead by a score of 560 I'm sorry, after Alba had taken her second deadlift, she was at a 560 total. And Chiara went to 232.5 for her second pull. So she took a 17.5 kilo jump to cover that spread. And I think that is a mistake. And so I know that that's going to raise some eyebrows and ruffle some feathers because there's a lot of people in the international powerlifting community who always believe, well, I need to cover the spread of my competitor and match my competitor on the second attempt so that I can tie them and be ahead on body weight. I do not subscribe to that belief in all cases. Sometimes you can do it. Yes. In this case, that was a major error because they jumped 17.5 kilos and Chiara did make the attempt, but it was all she had. It was literally, I mean, they used up all of the gas in her tank on their second deadlift. And to what Rory said was, it was kind of nice that she came out for another 5 kilos, but I don't know. I don't recall, Rory, did the bar even leave the floor for her third one for Chiara? I don't even know that the bar really went anywhere, you know?
I, it
So
wasn't a good attempt. No, it
yeah,
wasn't a good. I don't remember
it
if it came
wasn't a
off
good
the floor, but it
attempt.
wasn't good.
Right. So she'd already missed the squats and so forth. So in this particular situation, you have to use all three bullets in your gun, right? And you've got to score points and secure kilos with all three of your deadlifts. So it would have been more appropriate to say, you know what, we're not going to go for the win here on her second one and try to match her, be head on body weight. We're going to take a stepping stone, momentum building, bridge builder, whatever rationale you want to call it, or second attempt for the deadlift, and then see what we need because we're going to pull after her anyway. So I thought that was an error that came back to bite her. To Rory's point, if she'd have made another squat, perhaps this is a completely different championship. So, but all credit due to Alba, knocking it out of the park, 9 for 9, etc. Really just sad to see. I mean, Eric and I both put our stock and our faith in Meg. And look, I'm still a Meg believer in Meg Scanlon. I'm still a staunch advocate of her and supporting her and so forth. And she just look, it's sports. Sometimes you just don't have the day that you anticipate having, regardless of how the prep goes. She missed her third squat, so only missed 2.5 there. Missed the third bench. That was on one of those technicalities. I guess it was bench depth, or her hips came up or something. They decided to repeat it. I was a little bit shocked that they decided to repeat that. Personally, with the way that she benches, I probably would have gone up a little bit, but again, they went up, and then she absolutely destroyed the third attempt and made it look like, my God, she's probably got 5 to 7.5 more on the third one. So again, but you've been bitten on the first one and you're worried about the elbow depth, and you're just, it puts you in this weird situation of what number do we call for that third one. And of course, you just nailed the third one and you're like, my God, we left 5 kilos on the platform at least, and then the deadlift, I think she missed the first one on a technicality, and it was just like, man, I mean, you're behind the 8 ball when you don't want to be behind the 8 ball, right? You're just constantly trying to play catch up and finding ways, how can we score and manufacture some kilos here? So obviously just not the day that Megan wanted, but still able to secure a 545 kilo total, which is nothing to laugh at or to scoff at, and secure bronze. I mean, she was never truly threatened from behind by the two lifters from the Netherlands. She was there, but it was just a lot of mislifts from Kiara and Meg. And that's kind of the story of why, Alba was in that pole position situation where she went 9 for 9 and just, had that exquisite performance and won. So hats off to Alba, IPF world champion, baby.
Let me ask you, gentlemen, this question about the 69 kilo performance we saw. I get the shit go. Weighed in just a stitch over 63. She was a 63 kilo lifter, 63.47. Okay. Let that sit for a second. I get to shit go posted up a 612.5 kilo total. That is the same total Carlina Tongatea posted up to win the 76 kilo class. And Agata was a 63. And Agata let Carlina know, I would have beat you as a 63. Agata literally, her dominance with this display, you take a look at, she was 0.47 over the 63s, and she was so far ahead in her total from 63 all the way up to 76 in one performance. Is this the most dominant and impressive world's performance you've seen, at least on the women's side, possibly period? Let me throw this in the classic. Let me throw this to you first, Rory.
It's funny that you're framing it that way, because what I actually saw when I watched Agata was that she looked miserable. Yes, 612.5 at 63.4 is phenomenal. It is the best good lifts points we've ever seen. It was like 133 or something. In my head, anything over 100 is like basically elite, right? And she got 133, which is phenomenal. It's well off her best total. She hated doing it. Her coach came up to me afterwards, looked me in the eyes and goes, the best thing about this is that she's never going to do it again. So was she a
However,
63? Was she a 63? No. And like, yeah, it was only another half a kilo. Do I think losing another half a kilo is going to take 50 kilos off her total? No, like that, I don't think that's the case.
It might have taken 612 kilos off her total.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you may actually be right. It may have taken 612 kilos off her total. Um, does she have the capacity to be a world champion at 63? Like, yes, obviously. I'm not sitting here debating that. What I am saying is that extra half a kilo would have really, really sucked. And it already sucked. Getting weighing in at 63.4. I believe the plan was to go 63, like under 63 and a half, and then go 10 times body weight or something like that. Like, I think that was the original goal. Obviously did not materialize. She had what for Agatha is a miserable day, which for anyone else would be like the single greatest moment of their entire life. Um, yes, it's a phenomenal performance. I don't want to see her do it again. I would rather see
this way,
her like actually be 69 kilos and do something that she's like the better total that she's capable of.
put it this way, put it this way. Well, you will see that, but put it this way though. Regardless how she felt, I don't care if Usain Bolt afterwards breaks the world record. It's like, wow, I feel terrible. I had the flu. It's like, that's great. Your number is insane. I don't care how you felt. I'm not asking about your feelings, whatever the hell. As a 63, she was 63 in change, but she was 63. Posted up 612.5 and literally clapped half the women's weight classes. I can't think of a performance like that, period, at another Worlds. My question still stands. If you could tell me another performance at an IPF Worlds where somebody clapped half the weight classes on the women's side or the men's side,
No,
tell
no, no.
me.
Don't
And I
get me
don't care how
wrong.
they felt.
No, no, no. Don't get me wrong. I agree with you. I just hated watching it. Like I think I like it was the best performance we've ever seen from any classic powerlifter ever. And I'm going to say classic with an asterisk, mostly because I haven't watched a lot of equipped powerlifting, and so like it may even be the best in the equipped side. It was phenomenal. Um, it just feels weird to say that for something that was like not good to watch.
What do you think, Eric?
What was the previous world record in this class?
How previous are we talking? I can look it up.
I know she hit
The day
600
before
at
Worlds.
Sheffield. I know she hit 600 at, I know she hit 600 as a 69, and she's the first to
Well,
do it.
That's right.
Then she moved to 76. So I think it was 600.
well, yeah,
600, yeah.
and she has the world record at 628 in this class.
That's right. Yeah. So, if we're just looking at raw numbers, I think you could argue that one of her prior performances was more dominant because she's technically in the 69 kilo class. But I agree what she was able to do at a very, very low body weight. Yeah. So answer is yes, Ryan. I agree. Um, I will say though that she might have PTSD'd herself into not being able to actually do a 63 kilo total that would be registered in that weight class based upon what she said afterwards. She basically needs to be, in my estimation, a kilogram of body mass lighter before she attempts to cut 463, and it would still be brutal. And if she wants to do that, it doesn't sound like she does. I don't think it's out of the range of possibility for her. But if she's going to do a water cut to that degree with a 2 hour weigh-in, then she'll continue to see like a 20 kilo drop on her training total. And I wasn't kidding about that whole another 500 grams could be losing 612 because it is not this linear relationship. There is a point of dehydration where you're just done. You're not going to be able to rehydrate in time. You won't be able to post an opener, or you may just not be able to train at all. I've seen it happen. I've been called in last minute for some athletes, and I'm glad they don't make weight because I don't want to see them get under a squat bar. So there was a real pot. The biggest threat to Agata Sitko on that day, whether she realized it or not, was herself. Those weight cuts can go bad enough where you quite literally can't compete. So good experience, maybe for her to know that. But it might have also robbed us of her giving another shot at a legitimate 63 performance. My big question is who is going to be the first person to total 10 times body weight? And unless, Agata is able to get light enough without really having to leverage dehydration to do it, she's the best candidate. But she may have just said like, nah, screw that. And if she's then going to come back up and be a full 69, I mean, she's the best in the world, the best period, the best of all time, as it states. I don't think she's got a 690 at 69. I'll say that.
So a couple things. I could tell you right now, Agatha's not going 63. I've already spoken to her. So she's going 69. And then so the plan for her is she'll go actually yeah, she'll go 69 and take the wait, what the hell am I? She's going to eventually next Worlds be an 84, but a light 84, and go head up with the Mandalorians. And I think actually she's going either 69 or 76. I forget which weight class now is the lower total. 76? Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, she's going to do 69 at World Games, and then I believe she was planning to go 76 at Sheffield, and then 84
That's right.
at Worlds.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
And to answer your question, Eric, it's Sarah Naldi. Sarah Naldi did 520, and with different attempt selection and different, and she's walking around under 57, had breakfast and lunch before she weighed in and did 520. Now, obviously, as a 52, there's your 10 times body weight. Now, I don't know. The big thing is, can she keep 520 as a 52? That's not easy. But if you ask me who's closest, now that Agatha just said she's going up, and she is, she'd be the next. Am I saying that's my prediction? No. I anticipate she'll be the first 52 to take us over 500 if she goes 52. But if anyone's closest, off the top of my melon, I think it's Sarah Naldi due to that.
I agree.
Also, let me also say, yeah, Corolla Gara, she looks like she's going to get close to a 600 kilo total as a 69 herself. Corolla Gara is all types of special, leaving at 588.5, missing her final deadlift. That's 5 keys right there. But holy flipping, and Corolla Gara herself is not, she was 66.56. So she is a rather small, just lost my headphones here. She's a rather small 69 herself. She also appears as though she's a few kilos off of making the 63 kilo class herself. She is an absolutely special, gifted talent. And the fact that Agatha Shitko can walk in here, and I asked her about this. I asked Agatha, like, why the cutting the weight, blah, blah, blah. She said winning world titles now isn't a challenge enough. I have to make it interesting. I have to make it spicy. I have to make it fun. Otherwise, it's just not interesting to me. And she's literally killing herself in a freaking water cut and body cut, and she's like crazy ripped and everything, and it feels
She's
horrible.
beat the
And still
game on
just
the hardest level, and now
yeah,
she's doing all the little side quests. Like, oh, how do I get the gold gun? You know?
yeah,
So
exactly,
yeah.
exactly that. She's like, how else do I make this fun? And she's going against Corolla Gara, who's champion
Third
in and
best
out of
lifter.
equipment, third best lifter on points, world champion in and out of equipment, world champion multiple weight classes, world games champion. Corolla Gara is going into the Hall of Fame. She's absolutely phenomenal. And that's who she has to have. Like, I can't be a 69. I have to be a 63 to make this interesting. And it's still a blowout. And it's still a blowout on her worst day when she feels like she's on death's door and she just murders everybody all the way up to 76. What are we talking about here? It's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And Chandler Babb hitting from the B class, the return of Chandler Babb, two-time world champ, taking a bronze medal. Welcome back, Chandler Babb. Salim Crum.
Sorry, to correcting that, from the C class.
Ooh, from
Yeah.
the C class.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hitting from way back. So
And I
welcome
want to
back,
say she
Chandler
put
Babb.
15, 20 keys on her previous best total to do it, or if I recall correctly.
570.
Yeah.
Ended off 570. Yep. Celine the Machine, Andy Nelson. We had some good performances there. Mart Jenner loading up at the end, trying to get herself onto the podium. Mart had a pretty good day. It was a good 69 kilo class. It's just when you have a hitter like Agatha in the mix, very difficult. Matt, what was your impression, actually? I don't think I asked you. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you guys nailed it. I mean, we can't throw enough superlatives at Agatha and her performances. I mean, she's just out of this world, and she's in another galaxy far, far away. And we're at the point now where, like Eric just said, she's she's hitting up all these side quests to make things fun and interesting and challenging for her. But it's it's just unbelievable, and it's sad in a way that Carolla's performance, which was absolutely mind blowing in and of itself, gets overshadowed by what Agatha did. It's almost like the Sheffield effect, because all we ever seem to pay attention to at Sheffield are the winners. And meanwhile, there's some extraordinary performances that happen at Sheffield that aren't the winners. And so I think sometimes we lose that as well. So hats off to Carolla. I mean, just a phenomenal performance. The 226 squat, my God, that's freaking crazy. And then, of course, Chandler Babb, like you said, Ryan, I mean, had the benefit of lifting during the day, really good conditions, bigger flights, longer rest periods, a cooler venue. I don't want to make this a referendum on the whole. I don't want to turn this into an IPF bashing podcast, but the reality is that she was in a great situation where she could just essentially lift against herself during the day, make some lifts, engineer a 9-for-9 performance, put that total up on the board, and say, I'm just going to sit there and let everybody take shots at it. And 570 proved to be too much for the rest of the field, because the rest of the field is having to compete in these A group sessions. Mind you, this one was on Eurosport, right? And we only get 7-minute rest breaks instead of the 10, which are printed clearly in the rule book. So I could go on and on about that. But we have to, we bend the rules to cater to Eurosport, which again is mind blowing to me. But we have 7-minute breaks, and then these athletes are in a hot venue, and you've got these Formula One pit crews, the spotters and loaders. Shout out to the spotters and loaders; they were phenomenal all week. They did a great job. But and that makes it more difficult for these other challengers, namely Celine Crum, Annie Nelson, Marta Jenner. Those were kind of the three there that were chasing, Chandler's total that she put up from the morning. And so we knew, I mean, I had written down her total and I wrote down her body weight, and I'm telling, Peach, I'm saying, look, this is the number that we're kind of going after. I mean, we're mindful of what Marta and Celine are doing, but hey, she's the pace setter now. And this is what we have to go after and try to manufacture. And it just wasn't there. We weren't able to get close enough. But Annie had a good day. She still hit a British national record. She hit a bench PB, a deadlift PB, and a total PB. So hats off to Annie Nelson, just a phenomenal competitor. Celine Crum as well, her first world championships. Celine is known for executing well and making a ton of attempts, and she did. I mean, she went 8-for-9. She only missed her first squat, which was on a technicality. I think they gave her a blue card or something for her knees or something like that. So they actually went up 5 kilos, but then she went 8 for 8 from there and finished at 557.5. And Marta Jenner, of course, took the only deadlift that was worth taking there. She was taking a shot there to score the 20 extra kilos to knock Chandler Babb off the podium. So credit to Marta for taking that big jump, but it just wasn't to be. I mean, that was a big ask, jumping from 220 to 240. But that was kind of the story of of the 69s. Of course, it's Agatha's world, and the rest of us are just it's like we're like a squirrel just trying to get a nut in her world. So that's how it shaked out for me.
Honestly, you said she cast a shadow over Gara, who had a phenomenal performance. She cast a shadow over the 63s, 69s, and 76s. I know she wasn't 63 exactly. She's 63.47, but she was 63.47, and she posted up 612.5. You compare her, you just normally will mentally compare her to those ladies who are 0.47 below her, and she's light years. You compare her to those in the 69s, despite the fact that she was a 63 and she's light years. And then you can go up to 76, and she would have tied Carlina and obviously won on body weight by a country mile. It's insane. She cast such a match, and these are all champions, killers. From Gara to Carlina, multiple time world champions, both there, to Alba, who's, I agree with everything Eric said. She's a future star. She's a star now. And Kiara and Meg and all of them, these are all killers. It's insane that this is what she's doing, that she's so far ahead. So let's keep this moving, because we're going to ultimately, we can't stop talking about her, but let's talk about the 76s. Carlina Tongatea pressed in a massive battle. Squats didn't go the way she planned. She left with just 2.5 kilos spread over Crane and Warford, you knew once that happened, this the battle was on. When they leave and she's got 2.5 kilos only separating them, and we know that Cranen's got a massive deadlift, this is gonna be a very tight and close battle. On the scoreboard, it's 595 to 612 and a half. But in reality, an inch separated these ladies. An inch
Yep.
separated these ladies. That final pull was legit. That final pull could have happened. That was no Hail Mary. That was within her means. It was probably just 2.5 kilos too much. Maybe 260 would have been there on the day. Phenomenal, phenomenal battle. And Carlina, who's been battle tested, is going to be right for these. She'll make those pulls, her knees knock, but she'll pull right through it when she knows she needs it. She's a lion out there. So you love to see these ladies press because they're going to rise just like Evie, just like all of them. They're going to rise to the occasion. You force her to take her last attempt, she's going to hit. And Warford she was the underdog. I seen her earlier that week, and she told me, "Holy smokes, this is kind of nerve wracking. It's happening all pretty soon." She's only been powerlifting for 3 years. In 2 of those 3 years, she's a world's medalist. I mean, it's happening very, very quickly. In the second world's appearance, she's literally forcing a lion like Carlene to pull her last pull, and she's threatening to take it all from her. She's an inch away. It's crazy, the progress she's made. And even Laura Motelin with 590, she's a future threat as well. She loaded up on her last pull as well, and she wasn't loading up for silver. She's loading up for gold. And I respect that. Lauren is Laura, sorry, is she's a possible future threat as well. Training Laura, you tell me next year one of those two is a world champ, I wouldn't be shocked. Or year after that, or whatever the heck, relatively soon, anyways. I would not be shocked. When I interviewed Carlina for the IPF right afterwards, she said, "Look, at these ladies are going to be world champions, just not yet, just not yet." And that's exactly the attitude you have to have when you're the champ. It's my time right now. Your time's coming next. So, Matt, what were your thoughts on this one? It came right down to the very, very last poll.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Ryan. I don't have a whole lot to add. I mean, Carlina, just heart of a lion. Her bread and butter is her squat. That's her moneymaker, right? And so I know that they were pacing and hopeful of securing a chip there and trying to get the world record on the squat. I kind of was looking at their attempts. The current world record is 231 kilos, and Carlina holds that. So presumably, in a perfect world, they were going to go above that on their third attempt. She missed her second attempt on depth. And I know this from the perspective that Carlina is like a bigger version of my wife, Susie, the way that they're built. And so I'm used to seeing them squat. They both squat very quickly, very fast. So at first blush, when you look at one of those squats, it looks good. You're like, man, she buried it. But then when they slow it down and you see the replay, the short femurs, and sometimes it'll reveal that she could be high, and maybe not high on both sides, but high on one side, right? Having this asymmetrical squat and so forth. And like I said, Susie kind of suffers from the same thing. And so I think that's what happened on the second one. I can't remember. I think it was Reds to begin with. I don't exactly recall, so you guys can correct me. But then on the third one, she got the decision 2-1, I believe. And we were all kind of waiting there with bated breath. Oh my God, are they going to flip this negative? Because then if they'd have flipped it negative, my goodness, then we're really talking about perhaps a different outcome. But she made her third squat. And then it was just, as you said, Ryan, it just all came down to the last pull. Credit to Laura, like you said, loading up. That 255 pull that Laura loaded would have provisionally put her in first on body weight over Carlina. So Carlina, good for her for taking a swing. And this just came down to the very end. And that's what you want to see in sports, right? You want to see somebody go out, make their final deadlift, and force their opposition to go out on their final one and make theirs as well. And it just proved to be, like you said, Ryan, probably 2.5, maybe 5 kilos too much for Cranen, but Cranen had a great day. I mean, a 595 kilo total at Worlds, 8 for 9. She's got nothing to be upset about. She put it all on the line. And yeah, this was just an exciting end to the 76 kilo championship. And I think as fans of the sport, that's what we want to see.
She did a 17.5 kilo jump on her last pull.
Yeah,
595 is not her top end. That's not her, wasn't her top end on the day. She just loaded what she had to load. Exactly. And that's where, when we get to the men's and talk about the 83s, that's where when people say like, oh, the battle between Joey B and Ade wasn't that close. No, like Joey B said it perfectly. He was like, it wasn't a 50 kilo spread. You're going to watch the scoreboard. I don't know exactly what the kilos were. It'll say 50 kilos. It wasn't a 50 kilo spread. I won by an inch. I didn't win by 50 kilos. And Joey B said that. It's true. It's the same thing right here. It was a great battle. And it was extremely entertaining. And a signature win for Carlina because she was pressed, because she faced an adversity, because some calls didn't go her way that might have. And how do you regroup from that mentally and then get pressed and like you have to hit this? If you miss this last pull, this is Warford's. And she had to hit. That's what champions are made of. And it was a good performance. Anything else that we should add before we move to 84s? All right, let's talk about this. Rory, we seen Amanda once again win by 20 kilos, 20.5 kilos this time. Relative, I mean, for Amanda, that's relatively close. A lot closer than we would have thought. We see one of our other adversaries go over 600 in Ziana from Britain. What are your thoughts here? Kind of surprising when Amanda missed her third squat, and then obviously chose not to come out for her final deadlift. What are we thinking?
So I don't have any inside information on this one. Like I don't know anything that's not public, but I was pretty surprised by this performance, and like not in the direction you want to be surprised by a world's performance. Like I thought her squat training was looking really good. I don't remember the specific numbers, but I do remember thinking that her squats were looking very strong in training. Um, and it just, for whatever reason, that wasn't the case on the day. Um, her bench was just her bench is just static. The first time that she benched 130 in comp was like 5 years ago. And she has benched as much as 137.5. But now she's just like floating around that 135 mark, right? And that's pretty much like clockwork at this point. She did it at Sheffield last year. She did it at Worlds last year. She did it at Sheffield this year. She did it at Worlds this year. She did hit a 137 in there as well. I'm making it sound a little less good than it actually is. And then, of course, did not come out for her third deadlift. So 627.5, that's, 19 and a half kilos, call it 20 kilos off her best total. It looks vulnerable to me. Like she's been untouchable in this class for a really long time. 647 is a really good total, right? Like it's so good that I think we forget a little bit how good it is because she sort of set that standard a while ago, and we just kind of expect that level of performance from her now. But she hasn't really matched that performance in a while, and there are people getting really close to her now. Like Ziana from Great Britain totaled 607. That spread's starting to get not that wide anymore. Like 20 kilos at this level is what, one or two extra lifts. 20 kilos is like one really good training, like 6 really good months of training. That could be 20 kilos. So yeah, I was a little disappointed here, and I think that Amanda is actually in a, like, I'm surprised to find that Amanda is actually in a little bit of a vulnerable situation here.
Carlina, I'm thrilled to you, Eric. Carlina could move up. You give her squats, and Carlina could be in the 620s for sure.
I
Eric,
mean, what would Carlina bench if she was 84 kilos? I think it would be a lot more than 132.5.
Eric, go ahead, buddy.
I just want to point out that, and I know coefficients only mean what they mean, but Amanda was the only weight class winner with good lift points under 120. And there have been previous years where she is in contention for best lifter or has had the best coefficient. There was a time when she was actually the best power lifter, briefly on some
Yeah,
coefficients.
twice.
So
She did it twice.
yep.
That's that. I
So
don't know what that.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, I'm just and she didn't take her last deadlift. Maybe she could have gone 7 or 5 on squats, and that would have been a different story, and I wouldn't be able to state that. But that surprised me. She was the least dominant within the weight classes relative to the overall field of powerlifting now. So powerlifting is continuing to advance at a rapid pace, especially on the women's side. And right now, she can stay where she's at and still be a dominant force. But there are people coming from other weight classes, And with the reward system in place, the incentives in place for people to take a look at vulnerable weight classes, and every 6 months, us redeciding what we consider a vulnerable world record based upon the advancement of the field, I would encourage her, if this is something related to motivation rather than physiological, to consider that.
I don't think it's motivation at this point. But Matt, what are you thinking?
Um, I'm just going to brag on some of the other lifters, if that's okay, Ryan. I mean, I
100%.
think, yeah, I think here, I think this played out the way that we anticipated, right? The podium looked the way that we thought the podium would look. We all suspected that Amanda would come in and win. We thought that she was comfortably ahead. We thought that she's the strongest woman in the room, and she's got that proverbial cushion to play with, and it shows that on paper that she had cushion even after missing a third squat and not taking a final deadlift. She still had cushion. So I think we all assumed she was going to come first. I certainly assumed that Ziana was going to have enough to fend off Jess, and I was right. Hats off to Ziana Azariah. Just a phenomenal day, coached by Will Brown of Team GB. Just did an outstanding day. Was a little bit underperforming in the squats. The weight cut took a little bit more out of her, but we were able to see that during warm-ups, and Will we looked at each other and kind of winked when we saw her second to last warm-up, but Ziana was didn't push back at all and kind of knew that we had to drop her opener a little bit. So we dropped her opener, but she made 3 squats. She hit a huge PB in the bench. My goodness, 7.5 kilo bench PB, which is just extraordinary. So made a lot of progress in the bench. And then, of course, oh, by the way, took the IPF world record in the deadlift with what I thought was room to spare. That was not a limit lift. She probably had 2.5 kilos more. I don't know about 5, but she certainly had 2.5 more. She hit that convincingly with authority. So congratulations to Ziana taking the silver medal, an exquisite 9 for 9 performance, world record deadlift. And oh, by the way, a personal best total to the tune of 7 kilos on top of what she did at the British. And then, of course, we had Jessica Bittner coming in third place, again, securely in third, but significantly behind second place. Jessica Bittner having a good day in her own right. I mean, she also went 9 for 9, kind of returned to form in terms of execution and not necessarily the number that I think we anticipate and that we suspect that Jessica is capable of. So presumably,
I got a note for that. I got a note for that real quick. Sorry to cut you off. I can tell you
no,
that she was injured. So,
okay,
but you're right. Yeah, it was a scrappy performance to get bronze when she
yeah.
wasn't 100%, which is
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead, Brian.
no, and that's good. I think you nailed it, Ryan. So if she was dinged and if she was hurt a little bit, then that would explain, fewer kilos on the scoreboard. But still, she returned to form in terms of execution and put together a really nice performance. Just because you're not at your best doesn't mean that you can't lift well. And she did. She went out there and represented herself really well, making all 9 lifts. And kind of a return to form there. And as I said, securely in third place, on the podium and not truly threatened. And just off podium there, we had Melina Arowal, just a delightful human being to be around. She was coached by Scott Simon of Team GB and also went 9 for 9 and had just a phenomenal day and securing fourth place there and scoring some nice team points for GB. And then, of course, not far behind her was Iceland's Lucy Stefanikova, who, only made 6 lifts. And I think that's probably the reason, she's just 2.5 behind Melina. Had, Lucy made a couple more lifts, maybe we're flip-flopping 4th and 5th place there. But I think that was kind of the story of the 84s.
And
Can I say
also,
one thing,
sorry,
Ryan?
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say to clarify my prior comments. I almost made it sound like Amanda's doing something wrong, and I want to be clear. Like, let's say she is capped out, and this is what she's got. Good for her. Like, she is ahead of the pack, has a cushion, and I don't know whether this is motivational, physiological, both, or whatever. And I don't want to make it sound like I am casting shade on someone. Like, if you are peaked out and you're better than everyone else, guess what? You're the best lifter, and she has been for 6 times in a row. So by pointing out that her good lift points are not as high as the other champions, I don't mean to cast dispersion on the most dominant champion we have in that weight class. So I just want to give her the respect and the flowers she does deserve. But I will say, just because you brought it up, we might be seeing the top or maybe the slightly beginning of the peak of her performance, and it's still good enough for her to win. So anyway,
No, I was going to say as well. This would be championship number 6 for her, and she missed one due to COVID. So she has done it's incredible. Her reign of terror. She's still in her 20s. You often forget because she's been number 1 since 2019. It's forever ago. It was back when Heather won her was the
hmm
world champ. And then Heather came back and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe she came back and blah, blah, blah. Well, Amanda would say, hey, I never left. It's quite remarkable to you to win that many world championships, and she has a cushion. She 100% has a cushion. So it's just the cushion will be mitigated as time goes, and it looks like it's going to be. So we're going to have some fierce battles, and that's not a bad thing. I want to see some battles, and Amanda wants some battles too. Amanda loves a good old fashioned Donnybrook. She had one back in 2019, her first win. Hasn't really had one since because she was been so dominant. And to your point, Eric, the most dominant women's powerlifter we've seen. Um, I think we have the Amanda Lawrence era, and it looks like now we have the Agatha Shitko era due to how dominant she is. And obviously, at some point, those two are going to cross paths, and it'll be the all-time oh my gosh moment of powerlifting. But yep, Matt, you have some points you want to throw in there? Go ahead, buddy. Okay,
Keep going.
let's
Just
move.
adding some flavor to the chat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Moving to 84 plus, and oh my freaking goodness, talk about a weight class that you can't pin down. Just when you think, oh, we have the strongest woman alive, strongest woman that ever lived. Brittany Schlater says, "Allow me to reintroduce myself," and becomes the strongest woman alive, the strongest woman that ever lived. Like it is crazy, and sensational battles. These ladies are in sensational battles back and forth. And Natalie Lalai from Australia with an absolutely phenomenal deadlift, and ending off with like a world record deadlift, ending off in the bronze medal position in Australia, back to back, like number 3, number 4. Sunita not having a day she wanted, still being 717.5. And I'm sure she's going to be back. Her and Brittany are going to go back and forth with this. And they're pushing each other. Like Brittany finishing off with 737.5. 737.5. We're getting into young Taylor Atwood numbers now. Like it's nuts what these ladies are capable of doing. And we had inklings that something big was going to drop from Britt. Because her training would indicate that. She usually trains sub max and everything goes way up. And even her training was big numbers. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's she gonna have on the day then? So yeah, Brittany really leveling up yet again. And I can only assume Sunita's going to go back to the drawing board and do a leveling up all over again on her end as well. These ladies are pushing themselves, and it's amazing. If they didn't have each other, I wonder where they would be. If they didn't force each other to go back and recalculate, I don't even know where they'd be. But anyways, Eric, what are your thoughts here, sir?
I'll briefly say I don't know that they would actually need one another to push each other like that. I think that is one of our assumptions that we have from other types of sports. Some athletes are definitely that way, but some athletes are they run their own race, they want to improve, and that's enough. But there's a conversation we had about athlete psychology in one of our future mandated episodes after you dropped
Mm.
two, two count
Oh,
them, Eric Helms in your recap. That they got. I
Joey B
see why
said
you
that.
released.
Joey
Yeah,
B said
well,
that?
he wasn't even in one of the episodes where
No.
you dropped that one. Yeah, yeah, you dropped it twice, and I think that's why you drop like 10 podcasts all at once. So just get lost. But the legal team
It's right.
found it, Ryan. They found it.
Your
Both
lawyers found it?
instances, they
Your
did.
lawyers found, yeah.
My very real Delaware lawyers found that. Um, but no, I'll say this is an incredible class to watch and how it's growing so quickly. And I think we actually called this one. And I'm like, I have bittersweet feelings about that. I somehow want both Sunita and Brittany to get gold medals in this class. I really, really like them both as lifters. I don't want to see either one lose, and I want to see both of them win. I think they're just awesome representatives of the sport, awesome lifters, incredibly strong, and just pushing boundaries that are clearly not boundaries. So it's been awesome to watch. Tell you what.
Well, lucky for you, they both get to win. It seems they're volleying this world title back and forth from Malta, which was an amazing showing, to
Hmm.
Lithuania to now Germany, and they're passing this thing back and forth. So if you're a fan of Sunita, you're a fan of Brit, you're a fan of both. They're both having their moments. They're anything else we should dive before we move it to the men's? I will say that the women, Team USA winning first place, Italy taking second, Italy emerging on the women's side. We had said when they spread out, who knows what can happen when a gold, two silver, whereas Team USA, two gold, a silver. And then New Zealand with two gold as well and a silver. Obviously, New Zealand in third place, extremely strong. And France on the women's side, fourth place. Kind of surprising. France leaving without a world champion. There was a time when that would be crazy to say. I'm not saying they can't rally back, but it was definitely an off year for them at these world championships.
I believe that
Anything
is the
else?
first time that France has dropped out of the top three on the women's side since 2019 or 2018 or something. I don't actually have the numbers in front of me, but they have been top three for years in a row.
The Italians have elbowed their way back into the conversation. Obviously, America is still extremely strong, and New Zealand has heavy hitters emerging all over the place as well. And I mean, if Evie does go up to 57, maybe it'll be like the Italians where New Zealand gets to spread out and collect more points. Sorry, Matt, you're going to say something?
I was just going to add one thing because we had put a pin in it, and now I'm pulling the pin and coming back to this part of the
Oh,
conversation.
yes.
If Joy Namani, and I know that close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, if Joy Namani connects on that third deadlift, Team GB is in second place with 41 points. So on a single lift there, and I know it's shoulda, coulda, woulda, that single lift could flip the, not the entire narrative, but a huge part of the narrative there in terms of team performances, because we got 15 points out of Joy Namani and Bobby Butters. And had Joy connected on that third deadlift and won, we would have secured an additional 4 points, which would have given us 41 and put us in second place behind the United States, 48-41. And we have a similar situation, which I'm going to get to because we're going to go into the men next. The story of the championships for us, and I'll wait to comment on the guys because we're going to get to the guys. But I'm just saying that was a pivotal moment in the championships. Joy, not being able to connect on that third deadlift, and Team GB.
Also,
Ryan, I don't know what you heard, but I heard the head coach of the UK blaming their placing on a lifter. That's what I heard. That's how I'm going to choose to interpret that. Wow.
That's right.
Wow, Matt. How you have fallen from grace.
And you know what else, though? Something that's got to be noted. Canada has the strongest woman alive. It is what it is. It is what it is, Playboy.
And I just want to add one final thing, right? For all of the accolades and all of the titles that we have bestowed on Sonita, it is now only fair that we bestow those same titles of Apex Predator and all of those accolades on Brittany Schlater. She is an unbelievable lifter, and she just is the epitome of consistency and doesn't have any holes in her game. So
good at everything.
Yeah, she's good at all three. So we have a tendency in sports to fall in love with the best 3-point shooter, or to fall in love, with the best squatter or the best deadlifter, and we all do that because we get it's amazing, and all credit to Sonita too. She's just an otherworldly squatter doing things that we never thought we'd see done. But Brittany is the epitome of consistency, and when you come together with a package like that where you're good in all three and you don't miss, you're really, really hard to beat.
Yeah, I can't wait to see these ladies clash again soon. It's always good, huh? It's always fireworks. It's literally flip a coin. You don't know who's going to win. That's what makes it so good. and they're taking their turns volleying it back and forth. This is like the best era at 84 plus. Obviously, the numbers are insane, but also because of that, because you don't know who's going to win, and they got each other. So, anyways, let's move into the men's 59 kilo class. Yvonne hitting 637 and a half, getting the Sheffield invite, and look at when Wasker wasn't showing up. That was a pretty big gap. Waskar is two-time world champ, made it to Sheffield, very charismatic, charismatic in podcast, has a phenomenal background story, charismatic on the platform. He's got big shoes to fill. And Yvonne with a huge performance here, hitting 637 was a massive showing for him. And not only that, Antoine Garcia hitting 610. We got two of these gentlemen now, 600 kilos and up. If Waskar was there, that would be three, undoubtedly. A podium of 600 kilos and up. Big surprise, though. Obviously, Kasim showing up injured and not having the day he wanted, finishing on 10th, getting a bronze medal in bench. At least he did get a medal before he left, but certainly not the performance he wanted. Spoke to him afterwards. He said he got injured about 2 weeks out. They thought about pulling out, but you never know. Maybe you taper and the taper gods, smile on you. Wasn't to be. And asked him about staying 59, and he thinks he's going to stay 59. Now, I want to get your guys' impression of Yvonne, Garcia, the battle, but also Kasim Sand. I think off of my head, I want to see him try 59 again as well. I don't want him to leave the weight class just yet. He never filled out 60 or 66. He was always under 66 without a weight cut or anything like that, just walking in. I do want to see what can happen, what he could do. I don't want to cut bait just yet. But what do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I was really just felt bad for him, but I also like what an infectiously positive outlook that he has. Um, and honestly, I think he's probably like if like I love the sportsmanship. Like I'm here to show up, I'm going to do a job, I'm going to compete regardless. I'm going to power lift until it's no longer something I love. And I think I don't think the it's so hard to say whether the cut contributed to the injury. Being low on calories, perhaps suffering some of the effects of being in a dieted state may increase the risk likelihood, but ultimately you don't get hurt dieting, you get hurt in training, and you don't know, right? And injury is very complex in etiology if you want to try to figure out what happened there. Bad luck for all we know. And I think there's still a world where Kasim Sand is pulling a Kel in that weight class and vaulting that world record down the track. And I really hope that he's able to recover and do that. If he gets exposed to an injury again in the future, maybe that tells us something. But I have high hopes for him. I think it was very unfortunate, but I think he did it really well, and it was just awesome to see. Ivan Campano put together such a great performance and did more than I expected. I didn't think anyone would be touching that Sheffield qualifying total. I thought, basically that Wasker was kind of in a one-man race, and now the apple cart was going to get upset by Kasim Sand, and neither of those things seem to be true. So it's kind of cool, and it's also I will say it's really impressive that he's cutting nearly 5 kilos of weight, Ivan Campano. That is a reasonable amount to cut when you're a 120. Like that's okay. That's standard. I walk around 125, cut to 120, I can perform well. When you weigh 59 kilos and you're walking around at 64 and you cut like that and you perform on the platform well and you kind of blow your old total out of the water, that is impressive. That is hard to do. So hats off. No, I was very impressed, and it's great to see that class is developing. Kind of the tail ends of the bell curve. When we're in the super heavyweights and the lightest weight class, they're going to get the least bump from the massive rise we have in powerlifting. So it's good to see that there's enough where these weight classes are improving.
Let me swing around here right now. Gentlemen, do you think Kasim Sand should stay 59 or move back to 66? Eric, or sorry, Rory? I already asked you, Eric.
You're just getting us mixed up because we have similar accents. That's pretty rude.
That's true. That's right. I'm being
No,
racist again.
I think that Kasim Sand should stay 59. I heard a couple of people sort of very loudly proclaiming that the reason that he got hurt was the cut. And we just don't have enough data to say that, right? When somebody gets repeatedly hurt over an extended period of time, maybe then we can start saying, hey, look, there is high odds that this is because you are in a dieted state and you are underfed, like chronically. Injuries happen though, especially when you're peaking for a competition. For all we know, this exact same injury would have happened to Kasim Sand if he was 66 kilos. Heck, the same injury may have happened to him at 74 kilograms. And with one data point, all we can say is he's hurt. So what I want to see from him is get healthy again, compete again at 59 kilograms healthy or in like a reason, like 95+% good, and then decide whether that's the weight class for him. And if he can't get to 95+% good over the course of, say, the next 6 months or whatever, maybe that's a signal that 59 kilos is the wrong weight class for him. Or if he gets there and he can't perform, that's a signal that it's the wrong weight class for him. But a one-off performance where he's come in and he's just like not at his peak, I think we should take that for what it's worth, which is just that he was hurt and he showed up anyway. And I kind of respect him for showing up, even though he wasn't having the best day. The other thing that I want to say real quick about Kasim Sand is he's one of the few high-level lifters. I'll also add Evie into the mix here, who coach, referee, lift. They've got a bit of an advantage that they're light, so they tend to be in the beginning of the week, which means they can sort of like put more energy into other stuff later in the week. But I respect them for sort of like giving back to the sport as well as doing their own thing.
Matt, what do you think for
He's also the president of his federation, I might add.
I did not know that, but that is cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yes, the short answer, Ryan. Yes, compete at 59. I think we all want to see it. So. Yeah, that'll be my short answer. And go ahead.
Here's my second question. Is Yvonne and Waskar now the neck and neck flip a coin matchup for 2026?
On paper, on paper, certainly, right? Because they're only separated by 0.5 kilos in terms of total. They essentially have the same exact total. So I think this is outstanding for this class now that we have this, and we have the injection of Kasim Sand into the story. So I think it's awesome. And I'm sure that Ivan, going to World Games in China is going to, have fun not having to make weight for 59. So we'll see, presumably, right, if the travel bug doesn't get Ivan, we'll see even a bigger total from him. But for him to add 30 kilos on his total is just extraordinary. And I don't think people truly know how much of a big deal this is for him to put that many kilos on his total. So hats off to him. But yes, I think this is exciting. I want to see it. We need to see more cream rise to the top of the 59 class so we can have, 3-4 people in the mix there for gold.
Yeah, I would love to see him come in heavier than 59 kilos and just post something up huge, and let's see what his top end is. Now we'll really get the drums beating. So when Waskar comes back, and it won't be at World Games, then we get to see these two rumble and have an exciting clash of 59 kilos and throw a healthy Kasim Sand in the mix. Oh, wow. Yeah. And if those gentlemen level up and meet Kasim Sand, okay. Now we're talking. You guys want to talk about the 66s?
Let's do it.
Major announcement by Shell immediately after winning the 66 kilo class. He says straight up, I am leaving the 66 kilo class. And he actually told me, I can't remember if it was on the interview or if it was in person, but he said, everything you said, Eric, on the preview show, 100% what he was feeling. 100% what he was feeling. In terms of it getting tougher and tougher and all of it. And he said it was getting harder and harder, and it wasn't going to, he's like, 800 is still achievable at 66, but it won't be by me, and I'm fine with that. And I will watch as a fan if someone else does it. And I was the one who spoke it into existence that had all these other fellas now being like, maybe we can. Now you got guys like Joe Jordan posting up massive gym totals, and all of a sudden everybody's all amped up, and Shell's like, I'm totally fine with that. Someone else can take it. It doesn't have to be me. But Shell, 2-division world champion now, 742.5, wins by 42.5 kilos, absolutely massive spread. Shell's a legend. Sheffield champion, now world champion. He did what Gustav did year before. Sheffield champion, the world champion. It's kind of cool that those fellas are doing this back to back. I mean, he's going to move up to 74, and I'm not saying he's retiring, but he'll never be forgotten what he's done. And I'm so happy that he's returned in this era. for anyone who forgot or the new crowd that didn't know because they weren't around for it. Now they know Shell, and he's going to forever be known with those big double biceps. Eric, what do you think about this?
I think he solidified himself as probably having one of, if not the best resume on the men's side of the sport. I mean, he's a junior and an open world champion on the equip side of the sport. He's an equip world champion, and I, by the way, I think that's in a different weight class than the two that he's won on this side. So he's technically won in and out of equipment three different weight class world titles. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He won the Sheffield, he won Euros, and he won Worlds. I mean,
And the World
yeah,
Games. And the World Games.
that's right. That's true. And I think that is something that people need to really realize that is we've had a best of the best showdown previously. Sure, it's based upon points, but I think everyone I've talked to who has actually been there, it was a life-changing experience, like Mike T and others, and just how incredible that is. And I am sure we can debate what is a higher level title, but there's nothing left for him to do in the sport. So I fully respect it. But what I respect even more is that he's like, well, I love lifting. I'm going to keep doing it. I love powerlifting, and
Mm.
we'll see what happens. It's not like he was here just for the titles. He has been a intrinsically motivated, passionate lover of the iron forever, and he's going to be with us for as long as he can physically do it, which I think is awesome. So, no, it was great to see. It was great to see. And yeah, I don't like being right about it, but it's. I mean, Matt's like, yeah, you do, but
Yeah, you do.
see that sideways look. But
Uh-huh.
like I think he cut to a weight class that was not sustainable, and sometimes we get surprised by that. We think, hey, this is a good fit for Shell, and then we didn't realize how good of a fit it would be for Evie. We see her total come up a little bit, and we've seen him peak early on, and then the more time he spends in the weight class, the harder it is to maintain that performance. So I think he got in, he struck while the iron is hot, and he's been very transparent about it. And he's like, hey, peace, I'm not trying to live that life anymore with weighted vests and broccoli. And hey, there's a reason why we bodybuilders do not stay shredded year round. I'll tell you what.
Mm. And um, when he first was starting to cut, and he was like 70, 71 kilos, hitting like 815, 825 in the gym, he could return to 74 kilos and potentially be like 830. And Perk, who's at 842 and a half, I mean, at least he's there enough that Perk can't miss, have a really bad day. He'll make him pay for it anyways. He's not going to be able to press Perk, but at least he'll keep Perk honest, just to have somebody there to keep Perk honest. And he could at least give that like he did in Lithuania. Avery Jackson taking a silver medal, total dipped a little bit, but pretty good for a young guy, brand spanking new to the world championships, grabbing a silver medal. Obviously, 700 kilos is nothing to scoff at in the 60s in the 66 kilo class. Total dropped the stitch. Haven't had a chance to talk to him about it, but I'm sure with internet, with flights, weight cutting while international and the whole nine, and who knows if he's a little dinged up coming into this, but still a very solid performance by a young guy. I think he's going to have some massive improvements, and we'll see that total jump well over that 720 that he hit at U.S. Nationals. And Santos Jimenez from Mexico getting a bronze medal. I love to see Mexico getting some medals here at the IPF World Championships, and him getting 685. That's a respectable total. He lost a couple kilos there on the bench press. He has an opportunity. If he could keep pressing and keep improving, he might also hit into the 700s. And it'd be good to have Mexico staying at the top end of the 66s. And this 66 kilo class, we had an outstanding battle last year. The entire podium, as a matter of fact, the entire top four completely gone in this 66 kilo class. Actually, I think top five because Joe Jordan as well. I can't remember who he's at. I mean, it was a completely different roster here. Everybody was entirely different. But anyways, any more to be said on the 66s? Should we move to the 74s? 74s, gentlemen. Austin Perkins opting not to come out for any of his thirds or not even his second deadlift. and still ending up with 842.5, still getting best lifter, despite the fact that he literally slept walk through this, had a massive spread over the rest of the pack. Chun Chi Fan hitting a massive bench press, though, 215.5 world record, getting the silver medal with 773. And then Joshua Wright from Germany taking the bronze in a beautiful display there with the German crowd all on their feet, chanting, stomping their feet, the whole nine. And he secured the bronze medal and ended up on the podium. It was huge for him to get that bronze medal for the host nation. And they freaking absolutely loved it. They were so supportive. They're supportive, period, anyways, but they were extremely supportive of the German lifters. And in particularly, were very proud of Joshua Wright. So even though it wasn't necessarily the numbers he wanted, it was, I mean, the finish. I mean, he ended up on the podium and he did his nation proud. He also told me he's going to be moving up to 83, and this will be his final performance as a 74. What a cap off. Your nation hosts the world championships and you win a freaking medal. And they were going nuts for him. So what a final performance in the 74 kilo class for him. But how about that freaking Austin Perkins? The guy is so far ahead of everyone else in the 74s. A welcome addition is going to be Shell, but Shell's not going to be able to give him a battle. At the very least, they'll keep him relatively honest. If he has a bad day, he'll pay for it. But I just don't know. Is there anybody who could press Austin at this point in the 74s? Honestly, I think Austin on a good day, what are we talking about? 880? He told me he thinks 900 kilos is possible as a 74. Let me ask you first, Matt, and then I'll ask you. Can he do 900 kilos as a 74? It doesn't have to be necessarily his next competition.
It's the only one capable, but I think it's a little bit of a stretch. So if I were a gambling man, if I were a gambling man, I would say no. And Austin's gonna hate me for that, and hopefully that motivates him.
You've motivated a few people with these honest.
So
is Eric.
So certainly he's the only one even remotely capable of that, right? But I don't think it's going to happen.
Eric, does 900 kilos fall by Austin in his 74 kilo career?
His whole career?
Say whole career.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no, to be honest. I think we're underplaying just how incredible a 860, 870, 880 total is at this weight class. It's nuts. And anytime a lifter who's feeling confident comes on a podcast and says, I'm capable of this, you go, sweet, 95% of that, I believe you. And there are exceptions to that. People like Agata and a few other people who are extremely honest about their numbers. But especially when an American lifter comes on a podcast and says that, you knock a few percentage points off. Gavin Aiden says it, and you knock like, I don't know, 600 kilos off it, and then you're right. I'm just kidding. I love you, Gavin. I'm just messing with you. But no, I think I think you have to have an unshaking belief in your capabilities and have things that will drive you forward. And I want him to shoot for 900 kilos, and I would love to be proven wrong. I would be surprised if he got that far ahead down the track. And that would be a Gotta Sitko level of kind of insanity, which would be awesome. And we'd love to see it.
Yeah. I mean, same with you in terms of I don't behoove anybody who comes in there bold. And I love the bold talk. I love the sound bites. I love the excitement it creates. I love the conversation it makes. Like when Shell dropped down to 66 and he's like, let's talk about 800 as a 66. He didn't get that, but he created the conversation. And now look at all the 66s all of a sudden. It's not the worst thing in the world to start speaking these big numbers into existence and see what happens and challenge everyone else, level up. Now, is there anybody that can level up and press Austin Perkins? Ilya in Russia. Elliot is a junior, but the spread seems if Perkins, Elliot just hit 800. He's young. He's a teenager. But if Perkins is around 860 range, 870 range, that's still 70 kilos. And Elliot is a future star, no question. But you need time. You need time. It's almost unfair to take a teenager, someone who's a teenager, and start comparing them to the pound for pound best powerlifter in the world. That's freaking crazy. I think Elliott's going to get there. I just time wise, it's going to take a stitch more time. And I don't know. Right now, it looks like we're operating in Austin Perkins' world. There might be someone else we could talk about in a second, but we'll put a pin in that. Anything more we should say about the 74s? Let's
I
move
mean,
on to the
everyone
83s.
knows just the fact that he did that on taking just a couple of lifts, I think is pretty damn impressive, you know.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
he
hats off
he
to him.
sleptwalked to it. Yeah, he literally sleptwalked to an easy peasy world world record total. It's crazy. And whereas when Taylor Atwood did 838.5 was mind boggling, and Perkins now is at a level just a few years later where it's like light work, easy work. Let's have some fun. Leave the oven on. I'll be back. Don't worry. So 83 kilo class, Joey B registering 890 wins the world championship. Obviously, Jurens, Ade, and even Anahoro in the mix there. We could talk about all the attempt selections, etc. I know, Matt, you were in the mix, so I'll throw it to you first. But Joey B with 890, a world record total. Talk about a huge leveling up of the 83s when you look at the world total from last year. I believe that was 845 range or something. We're talking a huge leveling up by all of these individuals. But you were in the mix. Matt, walk us through this.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations to Joe Bornstein, right? IPF Open World Champion. Nobody can ever take that away from you. You did exactly what you said you were going to do. So credit to you, credit to your coach. You came out, you made the trip, you flew overseas, you made weight, you lifted under the strictest standards, and you went 9 for 9, and it was just an exquisite performance. And I'm honored to have been in the mix and to have seen that. And so obviously numbers just a little bit down from nationals. And I think we all anticipated that. I think going in, I kind of had in my head, I was thinking in my mind's eye, 885 to 890 is going to win this thing. And that's what it's going to take. And it turns out that 890 is what it took. And that's what Joe put up. And so he had a really good day there. And I think the attempt selections were on point. I think they were really precise and surgical with that. Not tipping over, not taking too much, not risking too much, not going for the chip in the bench press and so forth, and then just putting himself in the pole position there where he's going to have to force, Ade to load up. And so, I was coaching Jurens, so I'll kind of offer that perspective. We had Jurens, at fully loaded. We probably had Jurens coming in right around that 880 to 885. If Jurens had hit all of his 3A attempts that we kind of had on his sheet, that's roughly where he was going to end, was at about 880 or 885. So we knew that we had to get the most out of his squats. And unfortunately, Jurens got his third squat to the tune of 2-1, and then it was turned over. And so I think when you watch the replay, it's interesting. I think one of his hips looks good and one of them looks bad. And so clearly the jury, was there and they overturned the lift. And so that was 7.5 kilos that we lost. And so I didn't feel like we were quote unquote pressured, but we wanted to see if we could make up some ground. And Jurgens' bench has really just exploded. I mean, he's doing big things in the bench press, which was really exciting. And we pushed the envelope there and went for 197.5 on the third attempt. And again, he lifted it. But his butt came off a little bit. And so it was one of those things where, hindsight 2020, should we have taken 195? I mean, shoulda, coulda, woulda, hindsight's always 2020, but it's never won a gold medal. So, but we pushed the envelope there and try to secure some additional kilos. And then by that point, Joe was in the driver's seat in the deadlift, and we were just kind of, looking and surveying the field. And that was kind of why we took the attempts that we did with Jurgens, was to make sure, that we were basically trying to, at that point, and if you paid attention to the rest of the meet, you had Anahoro, who at the start of it, I think he had 380.5 on the sheet for his opening deadlift. And then of course he dropped it. He dropped it to 372.5. So that, you're always kind of mindful of what he might be capable of doing. And so once it got time to the deadlifts, Anaharo pushed all of his chips to the center of the table, like he said he would, and loaded up for 400.5 on a second and missed it. And so that was kind of the rationale behind our third attempt. For Jurgens, was just taking a 12.5 kilo jump there to force Anaharo to add a little bit more. So it was going to cover us and I think there's a mindset there. I think I'm trying to get into Anaharu's head a little bit, the psychology of a lifter, where he's already missed this lift on strength. And now I'm forcing him, and I know it's only 2.5 kilos, but I'm loading a weight that I know that Jurgens can make. And it's going to, oh, by the way, force Anaharu to add a little bit more. And so I'm thinking that that's also going to play into it where he's like, damn, I got to add just a little bit more. I got to throw the silvers on either side of this bar, and try to lift a weight that I missed on my second attempt on strength. And of course, so we were able to secure the second position. Ade Omasakin, phenomenal meet. The guy went 7 for 7. And then my understanding, having talked to him, is at the top of his second deadlift. And we've seen this from Ade before, right? So this is, in the past couple of meets, we've seen this really high sticking point, which we don't see in other lifters. And it's kind of peculiar in the sumo, but I think he kind of lost himself there on his second attempt and passed out. He said that it actually felt like the sensation of he got to the top and kind of literally just fell asleep and just lost, kind of like Jad, when Jad came to, but he just kind of lost himself there for a second. I don't know what happened. I can't really explain it. I don't think he had to cut too hard. I don't know. It's kind of inexplicable, and he'd be more the man to tell that story than myself. But then he was forced into a situation after missing that second attempt, right, to kind of load up for 385. And that was the number that was going to secure the championship for him and beat Joe Bornstein on bodyweight. And so at that point, there's no other number to take. He's going to load up for 385. That's the number. I think all of us know that he has physical strength to stand up with that weight. I think he's proven it. I mean, he proved it at Sheffield, and now he's proven it again, but he still kind of not able to connect the dots there, and come through with that final pull. So, presumably Addie's going to go back to the drawing board. All is not lost. He hit a squat PB. He hit a bench PB. And so he arrived in top form and just wasn't able to connect there. And so we're really just proud of the GB guys able to secure second place and third place against Bornstein, who was and is the strongest man in the room and is the strongest 83, matter of factly. And so that was kind of the championships from our perspective. And again, credit to Joe Bornstein. And I know you kind of had that funny moment on your podcast, Ryan, and I'll just add just this moment. I'm telling you, Joe, I told you at the championships, I literally have no idea how your cell phone ended up in my pocket, and that is the God's honest truth.
No, I don't believe that.
Unbelievable. I swear to you.
No. Okay, Playboy. Okay, Playboy. All right. Is your lawyer write this speech for you? Did your wife write that?
It is not my style.
Let me see the notes. Are you reading that off?
There are other ways to get into a lifter's head, and I would not take someone's phone to mess with them. I walked in the back and Jurgens asked me, he said, can you give me my phone? This was right after benches. I reached in my pocket, handed him the phone. And when he tapped on it, it was a picture of Joe Bornstein. And I swear to you, I think someone picked up Joe's phone and slipped it in my pocket. Because as God is my witness, I did not pick up your phone.
That makes sense.
Anyway, we kind of had a good laugh about it, but I was not trying to get in his head. I was not trying to mess with him. And as I said before, again, congratulations to Joe Bornstein. You did everything that you said you would do. And so to the victor goes the spoils.
And would you believe someone took his credit card and slipped it into my pocket? And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I said, what, this guy's credit card in my pocket? I don't want it. I bought a couple beers with it and bought around and had some fun, but that was not how I planned it. Couple quick questions. Okay, first off, it got brought up. Joey B, people online brought it up. Joey B asked Ade himself about the second attempt deadlift. What are your thoughts on that, Matt? The 367.5, and Joey B straight up said, why didn't you load 370? What happened there?
Right. So I'll just be transparent from my standpoint. I was coaching Jurgens. I was not coaching Ade, and that's not to absolve me from any responsibility. It's just to say that when we have two lifters, as I said on the preview show, that are neck and neck and presumably fighting for the same things and the same championship, from an ethical standpoint, we like to split the lifters. And so I coach Jurgens, and my cohort Peach, Alex Pearson Jones coached Ade. And I think after talking with them, because Alex kind of approached me after the second attempt and he's like, did I make a mistake there? I mean, there was kind of a conversation we had. Look, I think for all attempts, you have a range. You have a range or a spread of numbers that you're going to take there. And look, looking at it and just looking at it on paper, yeah, should they have covered with 2.5 additional kilos? Because at that strength level, presumably, you're not going to feel an extra 2.5 kilos. So maybe they should have loaded 370, which would have covered the spread, and covered Bornstein and so forth, and Ade being the lighter lifter. So, I mean, technically, was that a mistake? Okay, maybe you can say on paper it's a mistake, but also knowing that it was, I mean, you can't forecast the future, but the probability is high that both lifters are going to have to come out and make a final pull anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't a mistake that was like cost him anything. He was going to have to pull his last pull for the win.
Oh, for sure. For sure. There's no question. So 2.5 kilos there, 2.5 kilos more. I mean, do you want to cover the spread? Okay. Yeah. I guess from a strategy standpoint, you probably want to cover spread, but also look at the danger in that. And I know we're talking about a much different situation. I explained the situation with who was it? With Chiara Bernardi, where they jumped 17.5 kilos, pulling themselves out of their proverbial strength zone, if you will, making the second attempt too hard. Now, would the extra 2.5 made it too hard for Ade? No, probably not. He probably wouldn't have even felt the difference. But again, at the end, could it have cost him something? Yeah, it could have, but we're fortunate that it didn't, and he was going to have to come out and make a third pull, which he did not anyway. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Have to ask these questions because we do the same thing with the other national teams.
Yeah, no, of course. Hey, look, it's all absolutely, it's all fair. So,
also, Eric, you were talking about the hit rate of Anaharo. God bless. Absolutely love that he's got a massive deadlift, etc. But his hit rate on his third deadlift was 33% going into this, and now it's I don't know what percentage it's going to be because he also misses second. However, I'll give him this. He wasn't swinging for the gold medal. He was swinging for something a little more attainable. But I freaking I am dying to see what his actual top end deadlift is. Because I don't know what it is. It's not 400, but it's also not what it used to be back when what is it, 380 or whatever. We're past that. I want to see him in a comp at least where no one else is pressuring him, so he's going to be doing these swings. I want to know where his top end deadlift is. I want to see him lock out his third, and I want to see what this looks like.
If he takes 390, Ryan, if he'd had taken what we call 3 more normal attempts with an endpoint of roughly 390, he would have found himself in third place with an 845 kilo total. And maybe Ade is making different decisions,
yes,
at that point of, oh, wait a second. Am I willing to fall off the podium here? In trying to go after Joe. And look, maybe the answer is still the same for Ade. I don't want to speak for him. Only he can answer that question. Right. But it changes the tone and the tenor of the entire conversation if Anaharo starts to take what we call just more normally structured attempts, where you open easy, you build the total with the second one. It's kind of a bridge or a stepping stone to the third. And then we find what you're truly capable of in your third, which I think we all believe is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 390-ish.
I agree with that. It is what it is. We'll see what he does in the future, but he didn't load up for the gold, and I just want to see what his freaking top end is because the guy's an absolute deadlift demon. But to be a deadlift demon, you got to start landing a couple of those thirds every now and then. That freaking epic win over Jerns for the European title, when he was on his back and he literally sprung to his feet with one foot. He put one foot down on the ground and crazy athletic. That was a moment. I would love for him to have a couple more of those moments because he could be the miracle man if he hits with one of those. All right, moving on to 93.
Real Emil quick, can I say one thing?
Yeah.
First, I'm just glad he didn't try 435 because what he would have needed, I think, for the win if I did my math right. So I think he's moving towards. I guarantee he considered it. And he made the better decision because it would have been very cringe. And even knowing that he was only going to step down to silver,
got me in trouble. I didn't say it was cringe. You got me in trouble at Worlds Now. You get pulled aside. He brought it up to me.
Rory said it was cringe.
Oh, okay,
Rory
okay.
said that.
It sounds like
Yes.
something you would say, but he was like, you said it was cringe. I was like, I don't even think I said it was cringe. I might have agreed, like, all right, yeah, you got to move on. You can't keep, but
We
anyway, sorry, go on.
collectively, yeah, no, no. I think we collectively are so impressed by his deadlift that we want to see it actually cap out or make have him make reasonable pulls. So I want to applaud him for pulling for silver. I think that was a reasonable decision given his range. I do agree with Matt though. I'll just say that. The one thing I will say, there's this conversation around first timers, especially coming from the US, about going to Worlds and not understanding the travel thing. People talking about, hey, I drove 4 hours to get to nationals. We are not talking about the travel time. This is bothering me as a sports scientist. We are talking about sleep loss because you are changing your circadian rhythm and you're in a different time zone. The If you think travel doesn't matter to worlds, you're saying that sleep loss doesn't matter. So when we say travel, I want everyone out there who doesn't understand this to now hear sleep loss. Okay? I'm going to help you out. Okay? That's all I needed to say. I am done ranting from my
Dog,
position
we
at
got
the
to talk
class.
about this because it kills me. It kills me how many Americans don't go to Worlds, phenomenal lifters, but due to this, because of phenomenal lifters who don't go to Worlds, they want to compare their totals to totals at Worlds. And to help this, they say it's not that big, it's overblown. All you have to do is this, that, and the other, and it's not a big deal. No, time zones are real. You're when it's midnight and you're supposed to be asleep, but your body thinks it's freaking 5 p.m. and you're sure as shit not. It's real. Circadian rhythms are real. It's not just a fantastic Drake song.
Yeah,
And it's
it's not
killing
the
me.
amount of time, it's the jet lag. It is
Right.
the jet lag. It is, in
Yeah.
fact, there are times where you can fly a very long distance and it will not impact you. I will give you an example. I
Yes.
flew out to Hawaii from New Zealand to compete in a bodybuilding show in 2019. And it was the exact same time on 2 different days because it's just really, really far north of me and we're over the international date line. So I got in a plane at night. I slept on the plane. I actually used my upgrades so I could get a lie down bed. And I competed like 2 days later. And the only thing I had to worry about was just having been in uh, a zero humidity environment to make sure I got my water balance back together. I had no sleep loss, no jet lag because I was
Right.
in the same time zone. But I flew 11 hours. So you need to be aware that it is not the travel time, it is the impact on your ability to sleep and the fact that you're going to pop awake at 2 a.m. and your body went, well, that was a weird time to take a nap. Are you ready to start the day? And you're like, start the day. What are you doing to me? And then you have to lift in 2 days. And this can be fully mitigated if you get there early enough and do other
It
things. But not everyone has the capability to do that with their job and life.
Right. And I was just going to add to that, agree 100% with everything you just said. And that's what Joe Bordenstein did. He arrived,
Yes.
to my understanding, about a week early. And he did what, a lot of the Kiwis do, what Carlina Tongatea does. And her job affords her that luxury to come out in advance. So when you have that luxury, when you have the ability to do so, it is wise and advantageous to come out as early as possible so that you can, as Eric said, adjust and acclimate to the time zone, the sleep loss, the circadian rhythm change, because that's what it's about. It's not time traveled. It's the sleep loss. 100% agree. And the
And
reason that we
almost
see
all,
totals, the reason that we
sorry,
see
go ahead.
totals dip also are because of that, because some people don't adjust to that, but also the level of competition ticks up. What's at stake ticks up. The strategy becomes a little bit different, the choices and the decisions that you make, and of course, the strictness of the judging. And so when you compound all of those things, that's why we often see the totals dip. It's not just one variable, it's the combination of a lot of those variables working together.
And a lot of these flights almost always are red eyes and you're trying to sleep while sitting up, and I never do. And I
Yeah.
land literally losing a complete night of sleep, plus
Yes.
the time zone change hits
That's
me. And I don't know how people just can't get this through their freaking head that it's real. And when
and
people overcome it, sure, they overcome it, but it's something that they have to overcome. It
and it's
just
what
doesn't,
it's
you just don't show up and it's, oh, you're 100%. It's crazy. This is a conversation.
yeah, it's why you and I are sick right now, Ryan. Also, I mean,
Sick to
we're
my
getting
stomach.
we're getting over colds just from being run down for a week and then getting back into our normal state is hard.
So let's move on to the 93s, fellas. And Emil Krastev, grabs himself a world title. Now, for a stitch, for a moment there, Jonathan Keiko was the premier 93, and we had a level of consistency there. Yeah, he lost to Chance Mitchell in 2022, came back in Malta and won even more definitively. And Keiko was more often than not, he'd be the odds on favorite against each gentleman. Now it's become a little more even. They're trading it around a little bit. Gustavo went head to head with Keiko and the other 93s. Now Emil is going to win. He beat Gustav at Sheffield, and he did it again back to back here at the World Championships. So we're seeing this pass around a little bit. Very interesting. It's an era. It's an exciting era. This is the big three between Emil, Gustav, and Jonathan. It's before we get ahead of ourselves. We got another gentleman who's announced he's coming to 93. And I asked these fellas in studio, what do you think about Russell Orhe moving up? And White Lights clipped it. That shit went fire. Russ was in the comments saying, I'll see y'all boys soon. And it's a phenomenal. I love the hype already. Russ isn't even in the weight class yet and hasn't competed in the weight class yet, but he's coming. He's going to, and everybody's already excited. But let's before we skip ahead, what do you guys think about this win? Eric, what are your thoughts on Emil Krastev grabbing that world title?
Good for him. We all had a really tough time picking this one. We kind of said, hey, roll the dice, and I've repeatedly said that the top of the field in the 83 and 93 are all outliers because this is the peak of the bell curve. So to be among the best in the middle, quote unquote, middleweight classes is to be an incredible athlete. So now we have a podium that consisted of now all world champions in the 93s, and it was a fierce battle. No third deadlift was made among the top four, just to show you why these numbers come down to both Matt and your point to world championships when people are fighting for everything. It's all on the line. And you're so close that the right decision for in every single one of these cases is to try to take that top title. And I won't tell the story, but I think the field is deepening, and I'll let Matt speak to Christian and their strategy to nearly get on the podium as well. But I thought it was awesome to see Emil Krastev do this. I know that there was a fair amount of talk like his deadlift at Sheffield was iffy, and I think that kind of tarnished that a little bit, which I think is unfortunate because you as a lifter, you just do your job and you take the white lights you get and you take the red lights you get. And it was really good to see him secure a win and now be the world champion and show everyone what he's capable of. So yeah, fierce battle and really exciting to watch. And it came down to the last, as we all anticipated it would. And hats off to Emil.
Let me also say the reason why some of like all of their totals came down. This was on Eurosport. The turnaround was crazy fast.
Yes.
The heat back there was insane, and all of these gentlemen knew what time it was, and all of these gentlemen adjusted as best they could, lowering the weights to raise their hit rates and try to keep pace because you can't miss in a battle this tight. And if one of
Mhm.
these fellas thought, no, like 920 range is where I'm going because that's where they easily could be 920 and up. On this day, everybody was already saying, don't be the one get caught trying to play that game. You're on Eurosport. It's literally what is a 7 minute break? The break
Yeah,
is
7 minutes.
abbreviated.
And
That's
yep.
between squat and bench, let alone the turnaround for the lifters. The flight was extremely short, so the break in between was abbreviated. The while the event was going on, the in between the flight was extremely quick itself, and then the heat on top of it. This was going to be a gutsy performance. This was not going to be a PR performance. This is a whole
And
nother
I
ball
I
game,
would
just so
say
everyone knows.
Emil did the best job adjusting out of everybody. He was the only
Mm.
lifter who came out of the top three. He was the only lifter who came out of the subtotal going 6 for 6, I think. Or no, he actually missed his second squat and then went up, which I think
That's
you
right.
have to do. So I apologize. And that's actually I think everybody missed one of their subtotal, but he had to adjust in a way that was risky. You go up 2.5 from second to third, you miss, and now you're done. So it was one of those things where you had to you do or die, and he did. So anyway, I was really riveted watching it, and maybe we can talk about this on another podcast, but I wonder if there's another way to structure things for a way that is palatable for Eurosport. Maybe we combine weight classes, but only have a higher strict threshold so we can get a few more in the class, but everybody who's getting to perform is worth watching. You know, we take the top, what is the most you can have in a flight? 14 by the rules or something like that.
Correct. That's right.
So
Yep.
so what if we did the top seven in the 120s and the 120 pluses, put them together, and we did the top seven on down, and we had a little more time for those huge B and C flights. I don't know, but I think there's an issue here where we're asking people to underperform when we're wanting to see the best performances at the same time. And I don't know the solution, but I think it's worth thinking about.
I don't know. I just know Brittany Schlater and had no problems. She was.
She did not.
She's like, you freaking babies. What are you talking about? And in this, interesting enough, so we knew it was going to be a tough day when Keiko actually missed the bench press.
Hmm.
Keiko never misses a world record attempt bench press. It's been such a loyal weapon for him. I think of Joey Flex, we were talking afterwards, and he's like, 2020 hindsight. Did we have to go up 2 kilos? But on the flip side, we need every kilo possible, and it's a super close battle. And obviously, I mean, you guys have been in these tough situations where you beat yourself up afterwards. Be like, were we greedy there? But yeah, you probably did need those 2 kilos. So you don't want to beat yourself up about it. But he is always so consistent. You load that bar, he gets a world record. But Kaiko, obviously, Gustav, Emil, all of these gentlemen now having won world championships. I mean, Jonathan, several. So it's a hell of a field. Matt, what are your thoughts here? And tell
Yeah,
us about Christian, who could have upset the apple cart.
yeah. I mean, not a whole lot to add. I think for all of us, this was a situation where it's too close to call at the beginning. I think we all admitted that. And I think what it came down to is oftentimes when it's that close and the margins are that slim and the lifters are separated by so few kilos, oftentimes you're either just going with your gut or you're picking the one that happens to be your more favorite lifter of the three, right? So it's just kind of cool to see that Emil was finally able to come out victorious, secure his first Open World Championship. So congratulations to him. That was just really awesome. It's rare that we see Gustav miss a third squat, and he did. And I think it was for depth, if I'm not mistaken, and it was 3 reds. So that significantly put him behind there. And yeah, it's kind of like Eric said, if you would have told me that the top 4 were all going to miss their final pull going into this championship, I would have bet everything I could beg, borrow, and steal that was not going to happen. But the top 4 all missed their final pulls. And yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Christian Eindhoven because I was coaching him. This was the second time that I've had the good fortune of coaching him. I coached him at Euros, where at Euros he was really just kind of on cruise control and was able to secure the W with less than his best. But in this particular situation, we knew the story coming in. We knew our strategy. We knew that we had to go 8 for 8 and just put ourselves in a position there to hopefully be able to pull for the podium with the third one, if somebody missed. And so I think, and we did that, and we loaded up 374 on Christian's final deadlift, and it was unbelievably close. I think everybody in that arena was behind him, wanted to see him pull that. I mean, his previous PB his PB is 360 kilos. So that was a big ask, but based on how his second attempt looked, I mean, I don't know, it wasn't a terrible ask, and at that point, there's really no other number to take. I think the hindsight for Christian and what he's beating himself up with is not the fact that he missed the third pull. He's not disappointed that he just lost his grip, that it kind of popped out of his hands at the top. He's just a little disappointed in himself that he didn't, his scale was a little bit off and the cut took a little bit more out of him than I think that he anticipated. And so he had to be mindful of that. And so we pulled his squat numbers down and his bench numbers down just a little bit. And if we could have gotten again, shoulda, coulda, woulda, and horseshoes and hand grenades and all those analogies, if we could have gotten 2.5 to 5 more in either the squat and or the bench, then we're talking about not having to go for a world record there. But oh, what an upset that would have been to knock Jonathan Keiko, off the podium there. I mean, I think that would have completely changed the narrative, the tenor, the tone of the conversation I mean, of the championships. And I'll go on to say this, and we're going to get into it with some of the later weight classes. Again, unfortunately, we only had one GB lifter on the men's side hit their final deadlift, and that was Jurgens. And we're going to get into Nonzo and AJ Sharma in the coming classes. But I think, if the Brits were able, and again, shoulda, coulda, woulda, again, like I'm saying, but the GB men came in second place like they did last year, but we made more successful attempts, and we scored 41 points to the USA's 57. If GB had connected on all of those third deadlifts, then we're talking about 54 to 49. And that is really sounds and hits differently. So I just want to say, Ryan, I know you and I had a brief conversation. GB is closer than people think. And so they're coming. And so, and again, I know that the USA fielded a different team and so on and so forth. So I'm gutted for Christian that he wasn't able to connect on that third pull. And look, and you kind of jokingly said, oh, I hear you say you're blaming the lifter, you're blaming Joy for missing that third deadlift. No, I'm not blaming the lifters. The lifters executed well. They did the best they could. And sometimes on those third pulls, obviously, 50, the data say that 50% of third deadlifts are missed. And so the reason, especially at world championships, is because we are pushing for placing, we're vying for position, we're jockeying as much as we can. And there's literally in that position, no other number to take. And the same with Ade in his situation. There is no other number to load up than the number that we put on the bar. So you want to put your lifter in the best position to succeed. And then, these razor thin margins, sometimes they make them and sometimes they don't. And that's sports.
I want to know who put Joey B's credit card in your pocket. I want to get to the bottom.
It was his
took
phone.
The words out of my mouth. Yeah. So two comments. One is exactly to echo what Ryan said. It's really sad that we live in an era where someone like Matt Gary has fallen so far from his ethical standard to where he's stealing phones and blaming lifters for his inadequacies.
It's crazy.
It's a sad, sad time. And then the far more serious comment, to be clear, is I don't actually agree that the jump that Jonathan Keiko made on his third is like hindsight 2020, because unless I did my math wrong, based on the body weight difference, he would have had to make that jump to actually have deadlifted anything less to get down to 355, which maybe he could have made to get to the first place. So I thought that was a very reasonable thing, especially considering the history. So yeah, I mean, again, hindsight's 2020, but is my math wrong there?
No, he had to extend. He was going to pull before any of those gentlemen, anyways. So he needed to collect as many, and he's benched more than that. It's just one of those freaking. Oh man, like the second was tough. The second was tough. It was a tough second press. It looked like a limit press,
come on.
but you need to
2 kilos when you're in the 250 kilo range.
I know exactly.
To me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to swing. You got to fight. You got to freaking scrap. I mean, I don't think there's any issues. Go ahead, man.
The only thing I'll add is I think it's, again, just a little bit of a philosophical difference with the temp selection where perhaps 248 was the right number, but aiming for that on the third attempt rather than securing the world record on your second. So, and again, that, if they'd taken something a little bit lighter on the second attempt, then I do believe that the 248 kilos would have gone on the third attempt. But jumping from 246, which is 99 point whatever percent of your max, to 248, it's tough, and especially under the conditions. So
okay, that I agree with. That I fully agree with. Yeah,
just spacing the attempts out a little bit differently. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about the 105s. Holy smokes, gentlemen!
Yep,
weighing in at 103.84, Anthony McNaughton. What a freaking monster of a man! This guy emerged with a 975.5. 25.5 kilo spread on him in silver. He absolutely decimated the 105s and clapped the 120s. Not to get ahead of ourselves. I asked, could he clap the 120s? And he did. He did what Bob Matthews did, only he did it as a legitimate 105. As a legitimate 105. When Bob Matthews said don't get clapped by a 105, he did it cheeky. He's 105 and change. Just like Agatha. Don't get clapped by a 63. She's 63 and change. He's a legit 105. And he clapped the weight class up. It's not very often you see that happen. Somebody in the weight class below out totals the weight class up. Very difficult. Anthony McNaught, the way we talk about Bob Matthews, how he's, this freak athlete, who's such a special athlete, and he is. My point is, all of those need to be now thrown on also Anthony McNaught. He is that special. He is up there with Rondell and Bob Matthews. And this is where I was going to say, as good as Perk is, and Perk is absolutely phenomenal, he didn't out total the weight class above him. Anthony McNaughton did. Isn't that the pound for pound what we're talking about, though? Formulas are formulas. Now, I still think Perk is pound for pound because Rondell Hunt would raise his hand and say, "Look, if I was there, we wouldn't be having this conversation. With all due respect." So that's where I'll say, okay, Anthony, it's a stitch different because Rondell Hunt exists, but
It's
my
different in a
God, what a
number of
performance!
ways too.
Yeah,
It's different in
go
a
ahead.
number of ways too, Ryan. I'll tell you why. When you are a 74 and you are just at the edge of the bell curve of where the most populated weight classes are, it is a monumental task to out total the 83s where there is the most lifters.
Mm,
And being able to do that is incredible. But when you are a 105, you're on the other side. You're the equivalent of the 74 in terms of size, just on the other side of the bell curve, but you're coming down. So the 120s are now a less populated class. So reaching up
mm,
when you're dealing with a smaller proportion of lifters, I think is an easier task. Not to
fair.
take anything away from Anthony McNaughton, but also not to take anything away from Perk, because the fact that he is even sniffing, and even though Matt Gary and I are going, I don't know if he's got 900, he's not going to out total Joey. The ask of out totaling Joey is far more insane than the ask of out totaling the 120s when you're in the 105s, in my opinion. Just to put that out there from a mathematical perspective, from how populated these weight classes are, and therefore where those outliers are going to be.
That's a fair statement. Matt, what did you think about Anthony McNaughton's performance?
Absolutely incredible. I mean, just unbelievable. And I'm excited to see him finally be able to do this after some of the things that he's been through and competing at a junior world championships, and not having things go his way and missing lifts on squat depth and being able to sort that out. And credit to him, right, for taking 360 on a second attempt, not meeting the standard to the judges' pleasing, and then coming back and securing that on his third. And so shout out to my wife Susie, who was in his corner and was his coach on the day, and she was able to kind of reel him in and get his head right. And I think Anthony's a different lifter now, clearly mentally, and I think that can't be it can't be said enough that he was able to secure that third lift and do it convincingly. And the bench, I mean, he hit, what was the previous world record? It was 234 kilos, I think was the previous world record in that weight class. And he benched 250.5 with plenty to spare. And so there's plenty of meat left on that bone, and the deadlift as well. I think we're going to see Sheffield sets up for him really nicely. I think we're going to see 1,000 kilos at Sheffield. And I'm not one to buy into all this number talk and all that stuff. And it's, and all the hyperbole that gets tossed around, but I think he'll be able to total 1,000 kilos at 105 and do it comfortably, because I think that the world record squat is within range for him. I think he could have probably taken it on this day, but they chose not to. They intentionally pulled his bench back, and they intentionally pulled his deadlift back to secure victory. Because again, as I always say, there's only one day out of the year when you can be an IPF world champion, and that was the day. And look, hats off to Keenan Lee too, who also broke the world record, right? Which was, by roughly 10 kilos. But then, and had a really good day, and was, came in and went 9 for 9 and had an exquisite performance. And oh, by the way, also got invited to Sheffield, which is fantastic. So we're going to get to see these two Titans clash again. So that's pretty freaking awesome. And that's exciting. So yeah, so Keenan, all the talk around him going to Sheffield and honeymooning through Europe and all these different things. Well, he's going to be, at Sheffield. And then of course we had Emil Norling, who also, well, he didn't go 9 for 9, but he went up after missing his opening deadlift. So it kind of has a feel like it's kind of 8.5 out of 9. He was securely in third with a total of 935 kilos. So it was good to see Emil coming back and securing a total that we haven't seen from him in a while.
And did he get
It
invited to
might
Sheffield
have,
as well?
I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe
I,
he did.
I could
So,
be wrong,
and that
but
was a PB total for him.
yeah, I think
When
that's
he
actually
needed it most.
better. Yeah, I don't think like,
It
you
is.
said
It's
coming
his
back
best
and
total
totaling
ever.
something. Yeah, I want to say he hadn't even hit over 920
That's right.
since
Yeah, like
Yeah,
like
he hit
2000.
928 and a
yeah.
half in Swedish Nationals a couple of years ago. And then
That's
ever
right.
since I asked him, I was like, "You're back." And he's like, "My sleep patterns are back. Everything's back." He's like, "Now we're going to see what I could do." And so he's hitting PRs. He's 935 and he'll probably become Sheffield. And it's kind of cool having him there at Sheffield. And it came back when he needed it. Now well, let's see if he could start pushing into the 940s himself, start pushing into the 950s because he's a phenomenal lifter. A
Yeah.
couple of the notes we're gonna have to talk about
Oof, the two bomb
Coco
outs.
bombing out and Anatoly.
Yeah.
First off, why in the heck did Anatoly load up 345 for his opening deadlift?
Yeah. As soon
What
as
is
I
that all
saw,
about?
yeah, as soon as I saw that go up on the board, Ryan, I said, that's a fake opener. That's the same stuff that they did in Lithuania. And then they pulled his opener down in Lithuania. When your personal best is 352 and a half kilos and you select 345 for your opener, one of three things is going on. You're playing a game and you're going to pull that number down. That's one possibility. Number two, you're an absolute fool and a clown to open up that heavy, okay, at almost 98, 99% of your 1RM, or you have made tremendous progress in the deadlift that none of us knows about. And that is the opener and where it's supposed to be. But clearly it wasn't. And so he missed it 3 times in a row and bombs out of the competition. And it's just unfathomable to me why they opened on that number. And it's disappointing because we don't usually see that out of these types of, I don't know, for just the Ukrainian lifters. You don't see it that often. They're usually technicians. They're robotic. They don't miss a lot of attempts. They don't, take out of pocket swings and so forth. So it was just unusual to see. And I was sad.
Did they forget?
Disappointed.
Were they just late in lowering it? When I look at his open IPF,
Yeah. Yeah.
He opened at 325, then 325, 330,
Yeah.
330. He usually opens 325 range and ends up, to your point, 350 range. That's fine. Cover a
Right.
25 to 27 and a half kilo spread. That's
Right.
normal. That's what he
Yeah.
normally does. That when he had that 345, I, like you, thought
I
they're
was
going to
like,
move it. They're just
they're
trying to
gonna,
hide their intentions. But when they
yeah.
didn't move it, I'm like, well, this is crazy because he's historically within 5 to 7.5 kilos of that on his top end. And he
Right.
doesn't usually, when you look at his open IP or like an open powerlifting, yeah, he opens up at around 325, maybe 330, which
Right.
is still a comfortable range from 350 something where he ends up. But on a bad day, like, it's crazy. It must have been a mistake. I don't know.
It's
Go ahead,
I
Aaron.
that's what I thought. I thought it was either A mistake or B. I do think it is possible that he made tremendous progress, but then the heat and the
Yeah.
speed of lifting impacted him. Because one thing I noticed is he weighed 3 kilos less at this IPF World Championships than he did last IPF World
He's
Championships.
101.
He
Yeah, no
was
kidding.
really light. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if something happened in the final days to where he was unable to stay as hydrated as he intended, or something. I don't know.
And I'll just say this from a game day coaching perspective. It's one of the reasons why I tell people to not get sticker shock when you look at the opening attempts, because he was forecasted as number one on openers. And I know, sometimes that's a game that some of these countries like to play. They like to say that they were in the lead from the start and get you to do things that are, uncharacteristic of what you might do. But, credit to obviously Susie and Anthony, McNaughton for not, taking the bait and falling for that. It's not where you start or where you're forecasted to be. It's where you finish. And so it was disappointing to see. And I was shocked and disappointed also to see Coco after such an amazing
Mm.
performance at Euros, right? Where he has an otherworldly performance at Euros and secures the championship there, to bomb out on the squat in Germany. And so, they opened to the tune of 300 kilos and he missed it. And then they jumped another 20 and then another 15. And so I didn't understand it. And then I was really disappointed in the lack of sportsmanship and not submitting attempts from there on. because that really made the flight even shorter. And so for me, I just want to say that, just because the day isn't going your way, you need to be a good sportsman and understand that there's other people out there. And if you have decided to not, to forego your other attempts and not compete in the remainder of the championships, I would just say the respectful thing to do in one of these A group sessions that are already short, that are already moving fast, and we're in a really hot environment, would be to just, for your fellow lifters, just submit another attempt and let the clock run out. I was really disappointed that they did not do that. And they pretty much said, we're done. We're going to hit the showers.
Yeah, it's too bad. Coco was so flipping strong as well. This is one of
Yeah.
those, I think they thought they had this conversation and it's, we're going all in and we can't lose ground. I am hunting for a medal. And if I lose pace for a medal, I don't care. I don't know. It must have been that conversation. It had to have been because they were like, they had this goal. I am pacing for whatever they thought they were pacing for. Because Coco on a good day, if 935 got bronze and Coco's hit 920, what?
20.
920, exactly. So yeah, this is obviously within range. They probably thought I want the podium. So when they had the conversation, like, do you go up anyways? You're not missing on strength. And it was probably like, I would rather push my chips to the middle. I'm not coming in fifth again or whatever. I want a medal. So push your chips to the middle and let's see what happens. I'll adjust. I'll adjust. Don't worry. I'll adjust. And then it is what it is. Look at this. The 105s was a bloodbath. There was
Yeah, it was.
freaking
It's a lot of
from like
mislifts.
the European champ and Coco bombing out to two-time best lifter and multiple-time world champ Anatoly bombing out. And then you got the big guns from the US like Anthony McNaughton with a massive performance. Keenan Lee, all's well that ends well. He talked about on the podcast. It's kind of funny. He's like, God, I regret that whole honeymoon talk. He's like, oh, but and someone was saying in the comments, this is how you fail successfully. he was he literally made it to Worlds and Sheffield, just like he said. It's like it's so funny. And he's a good guy who could take it all in stride. And he was saying, well, at least I earned my way to Sheffield. I'm like, my brother, you earned your way to Worlds. You were the number one alternate based off of your performance at Nationals. You didn't get gifted that because you beat out Taylor Atwood based on that's Taylor Atwood based on performance. It was merit that you were on Team USA. You didn't luck into nothing, huh? So you earned your way onto the national team. You earned your way to Sheffield.
It actually worked out that he wasn't lifting in the same flight, at nationals. It would have been interesting if he had
Yeah,
been in a head-to-head battle,
right.
whether his total would have been suppressed because he might have been pulling for something bigger, but he was able to have like kind of run his own race, and put up the biggest total possible while Taylor was potentially capable of 890, but ended on 872. So it
Yeah,
it just goes to show you like, you don't know what's going to happen. Just
Right.
get out there, do your thing. And I really like Keenan. I think
I
like
like
his
Keenan too.
perspective is great. He's very rational. He has this combination of rationality, but also extreme like optimism and competitiveness that I think is what makes champions. So I'm really hopeful to see more battles between them in the 105s.
Dude, it's just so funny the storyline around it. And he's like, oh my
Yep.
God. I'm like, dude, it's amazing. And all's well that ends well. It all worked out, brother. So who cares? You get the last laugh regardless. And I agree. He's awesome on the podcast. He's phenomenally talented. And I think he's gonna put something up because he'll have a full training camp, no abductor injury by then, plenty of time to heal up and have like a good like I think he's also capable of a monstrous total as a 105. Let the chips all fall where they're supposed to. Let him have some rest and heal up. Like literally in terms of timing, he got married, put on some happy pounds, and was kind of just living life as he should. He thought, oh, frick, I missed my opportunity for Worlds, but I have life things happening, marriage and the whole nine. And when he got the call, okay, you got 4 weeks. And he's like, and he got in decent shape. He won a silver medal. Not only did he win a silver medal, he had the highest percentage silver medalists to get all the way to Sheffield. So he had a good performance, broke the world record too. Like to Matt's point earlier, he had a good enough with just 4 weeks because he's natural talent. So let's see what he does with a full camp going in Sheffield, fully healed. He'll be all right. He'll be right up in there. Is he going to beat Anthony McNaughton head to head? He'll definitely be the underdog this time, but um, he'll put up a good performance.
Last thing I'll say about the 105s, just a shout out to GB's Sanchez Dillon. Obviously, we loaded up there 411.5, took a swing on his last deadlift. That would have put us in fifth place, and so he just missed it. It was so close. He's the world record holder in the pull with a 400 kilo deadlift. We all saw him do the 405 in the deadlift only comp. And so it was just one of those numbers where there was really kind of no other number to take at that point. We had discussed, hey, he's like, hey, if I'm out of the top 5, he's like, I don't care where I land. So that was going to connect all the dots for us, in terms of, hey, it was going to secure him 5th place and also give him the heaviest deadlift in IPF history. And he just really, really close, wasn't able to connect.
Also, Regan Stragakis, junior world champ, swinging with the big boys here, finishing just off a podium. But he's got a future in front of him as well. He's got a break. He's still a junior, by the way. He's got another junior worlds to go around. So we'll keep an eye on him.
Set a junior world record too.
Yeah, he's up and coming. He's definitely up and coming. Okay, 120s. What a freaking battle. I think probably Matt, I'll throw it to you for this one, but right down to the very end, this was good. Tell me about this one, sir.
Yeah, this was incredible. I mean, this was just an unbelievable performance by Etienne and by a lot of lifters. And I want to give Eric some credit here because he called it. He said, hey, this guy, Joseph McDonald, is going to be the dark horse. When you click on the link and you open up his open powerlifting, there's not a lot of history there. And so I think he'd only done 2 meets, or there were only 2 meets listed on his open powerlifting. And you saw this quantum leap between the first and second meet. And we were just saying, look, there's probably going to be another quantum leap there, right? And so, just kind of looking at the top 5 that were in the conversation, right? I'll just kind of start at the bottom with Mo from GB. What a phenomenal performance, man. I mean, unbelievable. I know that Mo, I say only tied his PB total, but to do it at an open world championships after a little bit of a hiatus. I mean, his 3rd squat was absolutely epic. Peach called that number on the button. I mean, I don't know. That was just an epic 3rd squat by Mo. He was able to secure silver in the squat. And then likewise on bench, he credit to him. He sorted out this elbow issue that he had and wasn't able to get start commands at the British. And now everything looked great. And he hits a nice 217 kilo PB 3rd bench. And he's 8 for 8 in the position that he wants to be in. And then he just wasn't able to connect on his final pull. And it was close. It was that close.
It was close.
Yeah, they took a 15 kilo jump from his 2nd to his 3rd, and look, had he made that, the way that things shake out, and I'm going to get to the rest of the story, that would have put him in 2nd. That would have bumped Nonzo down to 3rd on body weight. So really nothing to be ashamed of, just an outstanding performance. It just, he stood up with the weight. It just wasn't to the judge's satisfaction there in terms of lockout. So credit to Mo, just an outstanding guy, an outstanding lifter. And then, if we're working our way up again, Joseph McDonald from Trinidad. I mean, just an incredible performance by him. He went 7 for 9. He totaled 945 kilos, which is putting, what was his previous best? I'm just looking at our spreadsheet here. 926 and a half was his previous best. And clearly, I think we all recognize from the attempts and so forth that that he's beyond 945, right? I spoke with his coach in DMs, and I was kind of asking him, hey, what was the rationale behind putting 385 on the bar? Why didn't you kind of take something in the 370-ish range circa, and that would have, potentially put you in first place there. And he said, I was living in a world where I didn't think that Etienne and Nonzo were going to end up, with, and I say only a 390 kilo deadlift out of Etienne and only a 390 kilo deadlift out of Nonzo. So he was kind of, living in that world where he thought for sure these guys were going to connect on their 3rd pulls, as they have shown the ability to do. And so that was kind of the story. Joseph only missed 2.5 kilos on that 3rd bench, but he did miss a lot of kilos there with taking that risk, and taking that swing on that big 3rd pull. And so he found himself in 4th place with 945. And so then when we kind of talk about those big 3, if there even was a big 3 with Nonzo, Etienne, and Dev, we had Dev coming in 3rd place. Kind of, I guess, maybe about what we expected out of Dev in terms of his squat. Nice to see that he kind of wasn't as bad off as he was at Nationals, where he squatted 317, but not as good as he has been with a 340 kilo squat, but working his way back from a knee injury. And then, of course, the world record bench. I think we all expected that, right? He hit 265.5, which was just incredible. And he probably had maybe another 2 kilos left there, but a wise attempt selection. And then, was only able to secure two successful deadlifts. He missed his final one on strength, and if he'd had that, that would have put him in first place. So you've got guys swinging big here at the end, taking chances, trying to jockey and move themselves up the ladder. And so, Dev's pull, if we're looking at it, if you add 17.5 kilos to his total, he's, in first place. And then, of course, the story between Nonzo and Etienne there, both of these guys missed their third squats. And so just from our point of view, coaching Nonzo, he missed his third squat. Nonzo has a tendency to go deeper with each attempt. And, I've spoken to him and his coach, and I think that's something that, might need to get worked on a little bit. I thought the spotters came in a little bit early on his third squat. And I will say this, though. I've watched the replay, and while they may have been, just a fraction of a second early, I'm not sure that Nonzo was going to finish that lift, to be fair, right? He squatted deeper on that third attempt. He lost positioning. He had this weird hip shift, and his chest began to cave. So while the spotters may have caught it a little bit early, I'm not certain, to be fair, that he would have finished that lift. And so then we were confronted. I did go to the jury. They gave us the extra time. We had a brief conversation in the back, and really, I think we made the right call in saying, hey, man, let's shut you down here for squats. This is a really short flight. Everything is moving at a blistering pace. It's really hot in this building. And for you to come out for another squat and have to do it in about another 4 minutes with, oh, by the way, the same load that we just missed, it's going to come at the expense of your deadlift. And so I told him, I said, look, I think we're in an okay position here, right? Etienne missed his third squat. Some other lifters, there's going to be some more missed lifts, and we're going to be in a situation where you've got the biggest deadlift and we can make up some ground. And so Nonzo went 3 for 3 in the bench. We didn't even have 217.5 on the card, Ryan. Our top end that we were projecting was 215, which would have given him a 2.5 kilo PB, but he hit 217 and he had 220. I'm telling you, 217 looked fantastic. I think that was a good attempt call, but hindsight, again, he probably had 2.5 more. So he's made tremendous progress in the bench. And then look, it just came down for us, to that third and final pull, right? So Etienne, missed his opener and then came back and took a big jump, to 380 and secured that. And then, had put in a placeholder and dropped his to 390. And then when he made that, it was all on Nonzo. And so I think if you'd asked every single person in that arena, I think probably 99% of them would have bet on Nonzo Chinye to connect on that third pull, right?
100%.
We all saw the 400 at Euros to the tune of, oh, by the way, he probably could have pulled 410, 412.5. We all saw the 405 that he showed on social media at the end of an SBD day, right? And I just think, to be fair, again, not making excuses, it was the most imperfect storm for Nonzo. It was just everything, his body began to betray him at just the wrong moment. And so when he went out for that third pull, I think, as I said, we all thought, oh man, your 390 looks solid. You've got more than 10 kilos left in the tank. But his body just failed him at the wrong time. And so he began to cramp, and he felt his shoulder go, his right shoulder, immediately as he started to pull. He felt like something went in his shoulder. So credit to him to hang on and to fight that thing through almost to lockout. But as you can see, when he put the bar down, his body began to seize up. He started to almost convulse, that he was having cramps so bad. We had to get him off the platform. I had to take him in the back, spread his hands apart. I mean, he was really in a bad way. We were shoving electrolytes down him. He did sublux his shoulder. He was diagnosed with that, with a slight subluxation of his right shoulder, but I've spoken to him. He's feeling better. He's fine. He's not going to have any surgery or anything like that. He's going to be able to rehab it. But again, that's kind of the story of the championships. But hey, credit to Etienne, right? who did what he had to do when he had to do it, makes a huge 390 kilo pull at the end there. And we just, from Nonzo's point of view, we weren't able to connect. And Etienne walks away as the IPF world champion. So credit to him. And I will say this, I was over at the scorers table quite a bit during the warm-ups for deadlifts because I was certain that Etienne was going to bump his deadlift opener, and I was ready. I had a change in place because if he put in if he put in a higher deadlift to get ahead of us and pull after us, I was going to change ours. So I was ready, but they didn't, and so I was surprised. And then of course he oddly misses his opener, and then he's put in a situation where he basically has to take that jump. I mean, if you don't take that jump, you're basically forfeiting, your chances at winning the championships. So I hope that's kind of tied a ribbon around it, or at least from our perspective. But I'm just gutted for Nonzo. I really am, man. But credit to him for doing so well at his first, IPF Open World Championships at the tender age of 20. I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, I know that we're talking about Rondell coming back and all these sorts of things. So it was an opportunity missed. And I know that he's bummed about it, but he's nothing to be ashamed about. It was just really poor competition conditions for all of the lifters. Everybody had to deal with those things, and we just weren't able to connect, unfortunately.
2020 hindsight, but Joseph McDonald did a 32.5 kilo jump from his second to his third. If he just did 17.5, is it?
Right.
He could be a world champ. Like,
right.
I mean, that's 2020. And obviously when you're pulling first, they're telling themselves like you're aiming what you think they're going to do after you. And they're telling themselves, look, do you want to aim conservative? And they're probably going to pull more, so you'll end up somewhere on the podium, or do you want to aim where we think you pressure them the most and you're actually going to be a world champ? Do you think you have 385? And if he's like, I got 385, that's my max today. Like, what's your max today if I load it up? Because I think you're going to need it. And I think all of us are surprised that Nonzo didn't hit, and freaking, I thought ATN would be over 400 kilos myself. I thought those fellas were going over 400 kilos. So I get it. You're banking on if you're pulling first, not like, well, let's assume everyone misses after me and they're having shitty days. You're almost like, no, how could that be? But anyways, 2020 hindsight, like they say. Right. Let's move into the 120 pluses. You got anything you want to throw out there, Eric, or do you think you're good for the 120 pluses?
Only thing I want to say about the 120s is it's rare to see 5 people pull for the win. Very rare.
Yeah.
There are some world championships where it doesn't happen, men or women's side, and that was a really exciting flight to watch.
And go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, I guarantee you Trinidad sends both Rondell and Joseph next year and double up in the 120s, which will be fantastic because it'll be killers everywhere. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to add to that is Dennis Cornelius's record stays alive for one more year.
Can you believe it?
It's insane, right? It's since 2016 Colleen, we've been talking on this podcast that record is going to fall, and there it is. And he's kicking back with a Budweiser and his bare feet in his garage, squatting, laughing at all.
Fair enough. But the politics.
Of course we know.
Yeah. We'll get into it. Right. I'll get. Well,
it shows you just how much of a special talent Rondell Hunt is,
for sure.
Oh, totally.
As well as Dennis. All right, let's talk about the 120 pluses, fellas. Jesus Oliveras, he's got 5 world titles now. That equals Ray Williams. Number 6 next year, and he's young as hell too, is going to be a special one. He'll break Ray's record of 5 world titles in the 120 pluses, which is crazy phenom. We are literally in the Jesus Oliveras era. Jesus does it again, hits. He only got his opening squat. It wasn't the day he wanted. Only got his opening deadlift. Had a decent bench press day though. Ended off at 270. Probably could have loaded up 600. So decent bench day. The squat, I think he was saying afterwards, he was slightly injured, was hoping it wouldn't rear its head, but it did come that second attempt. So they thought about a third. Should we retake this? And then he thought, you know what? Let's not re-aggravate anything. Obviously, he's still got a bench press and deadlift. So that's why, if anyone's wondering, he didn't come out for his third had a re-aggravation there, rallied a little bit, had a pretty good bench press, and then in deadlifts, the same issues started plaguing him. He's going to have to retool this. Take a look what's going on. There's something going on, obviously, at the lockout. Everyone's talked about this good and plenty all over social media, the comments, Reddit, the whole freaking nine. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm sure Jesus isn't sure what's going on, but now it's become a talking point, and unfortunately, refs are really going to lean in. Come the third attempt, I can't remember now. Did it just straight up come out of his hands even?
Yeah, it started to pop out of his hands right at the end. Yeah, he wasn't able to hang on to the bar for the down command.
So there's something going on there. Obviously, you lean back a little, it helps the grip. And then there's something going on with the grip issue, anyways. Nevertheless, still the strongest man in the IPF. The total has come down a stitch. He's young enough to make adjustments, and he's getting close to Ray Williams' 6 world titles. I don't know if anybody can press him though. We got Jank here, who's 997.5, took the silver medal. He actually had a pretty good performance there. AJ Sharma, I'm going to throw it to you, Matt. You could talk about that. He also had a fantastic performance, taking the bronze medal. So we got some strong individuals. He's at 1070. Just going to tell you, Rondell Hunt at 1045, and Rondell probably is more than 1045. I mean, I don't think Rondell Hunt's going to move up and clap fucking Jesus Oliveira. I'm not saying that. Jesus, definitely, if he gets his squat back, we're not even having this conversation. This is funny talk. But, and I do think he will, by the way. I think even if his deadlift issues don't go away, his squat comes back, he's untouchable. Is there anybody that's going to press Jesus Oliveira?
No, I don't think
Probably
so.
not, huh?
Just not that's on the radar. And while people do come out of the woodworks, like, whoa, it's rare that it happens in the supers. Like you don't typically just spring on the scene as a 180 kilogram human who's like, oh, I don't know if you knew this, but I squat, 460 kilos. Like
Yeah.
that typically you see it coming a little bit more. But yeah, I was really pleased to see Jesus, do really well, but I was a little disappointed in what we would expect to have happened out of all the weight classes. Who's going to be affected most by the heat, the fast pace, and it's unfortunate that he wasn't able to secure the Sheffield spot, probably because of that. So I think that's an unfortunate thing, specifically because while this Worlds was probably, I think as Matt mentioned it earlier when we were talking about one of the earlier weight classes, basically the perfect storm to drop people's performances. I think when we were talking about the 93s, the Sheffield is engineered to enhance it. And if there's a weight class where we want to see someone get the best opportunity to have a home run derby equivalent in powerlifting, it's the supers. And the person who has the biggest total is Jesus, and there's enough time for him to address what hopefully is a minor injury, and I'm just going to be disappointed if unless he gets a wild card spot, I don't know, but I'm just be disappointed not to see Jesus at Sheffield.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to say, and this is not a shot at Jesus. The World Championships, as they're currently structured, and having this session on Eurosport are just not set up for prime performance for him and for supers like him. And so again, I know, Ryan, you'll say, well, yeah, but the 84 pluses did it. And you're right, the 84 pluses did do it, and Brittany Schlater did do it. So credit to her. But I don't think we're ever going to see another PB performance out of Jesus at an IPF Worlds. And so that's not, a hot take. I just think it's the realistic time that we're going to see Jesus get back to his top form would be at a Powerlifting American Nationals, should he choose to do that, whatever their qualification procedures might be, or at a Sheffield. We're just not going to see it in an 8-man flight at a World Championships. It's just not going to happen. I mean, and that's not anything against Jesus. It's just, I don't think it's feasible to expect him to squat 1,000 pounds, more than once and hit a big pull and secure his grip and all of those things. So, but the top 3 there, let's talk about some of the other lifters. Unfortunate for us, St. Cossack, had an 8 for 9 day when typically the guy averages 5 attempts out of 9. So credit to him for only missing 1 attempt, and that was his opening deadlift, which he retook. Really proud of AJ Sharma, the way that he competed his first Open World Championships. Hit a PB squat there. He absolutely destroyed his second bench. And I was certain that 7.5 kilos was a good attempt on his third, and he just missed it just barely. And so, hindsight, I should have called 5. That's on me. And then, kind of likewise for his deadlift, blew up his second deadlift. And I thought for sure 12.5 kilos. He was confident with that. And it was 2.5 kilos too much. And so sometimes we just get those judgment calls wrong. And so, I need to take responsibility for that. That's my fault. Because then that opened the door for Sank to be able to, drop his third deadlift and come in and sneak ahead of us by 2.5 kilos. But still, AJ Sharma, getting third place. Our other lifter, Paul Kirkbride Richards, had an extraordinary day, going 8 for 9. We took a swing with his third deadlift, and had he made his third deadlift, he would have come in 4th place, so just off the podium. But that was kind of the story for me of the supers.
Just to throw this out there,
And also Timor. I'm sure you would have mentioned Timor.
yeah, Timor, obviously, yeah. But I just want to throw this out there. The second highest total was U.S. Nationals. Ray Williams did 1060. If Ray Williams was at Worlds, it would have been 1060 versus 1070, and we would have had some scary moments.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when Jesus is vulnerable, he's injured, missing lifts, and Ray Williams would have pressed him something fierce. 1070 and 1060. Are you freaking kidding me? Imagine those two performances happened on the same day. However, all that being said, I don't anticipate Jesus is going to have a performance like this in the future. I think probably 1100 and up, because the squat is never going to be 430 again unless disaster strikes again. He gets injured again. So, anyways, gentlemen, U.S. U.S. team in first with 57 points. Great Britain 41, France 27, Sweden, and then Germany. And like we'd said, Perk best lifter. Anything else we should say?
The only thing I was going to add was just to touch on that point again, right? GB came in second with 41 points. And again, I'll say it a final time because it sounds like a broken record. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, horseshoes and hand grenades, all those analogies that you want to use. We connect on those third deadlifts, and we're talking about 54 to 49. So we need to connect on our third deadlifts. And so that's for us, that's the message that I've got to send to our lifters, is that we just need to act. We need to connect. It just felt like the entire week. And again, these are not excuses. This is what happens when the margins are slim and the performances, between winning and losing can be razor thin, and we win weight classes on body weight and so forth. At this level of sport, it's sports, and sometimes you connect on them and sometimes you don't, and that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. But unfortunately, we didn't connect on any of those last deadlift opportunities. And so, from our perspective, the championships, as well as we did, it could have been even better had we connected on some of those third deadlifts.
In the top 3, it was Perk, Joey B, and Anthony McNaughton. Fellas, 3 short hours. All right, we said 2. We ended up on 3. Not crazy, though. Not 6 hours like the preview shows equaled. Not 4 hours like some of ours. This was actually not too bad for us. Not too bad for us. I'm very proud. All right, fellas. Greatly appreciated, as always. I always appreciate your time when you hop on here. Always well spoken. And for everybody listening, as per usual, please do subscribe, give us high ratings, and until next time, 6-pack Lapadat, 6 up, and we are out.